Since 1952, the Jayco Herald Sun Tour has been the race to win on Victorian roads. From Australian cycling icons Mockridge, Trevorrow and Gerrans to some of the greats from around the globe, Wiggins, Froome and Chavez, it's a world-class honour roll. Starting at the tranquil setting of Mitchelton Winery, the race quickly becomes the most mountainous on Australian soil. Into the high country, and the peloton will tackle Falls Creek. Make the trek from Bright and over the top of Toowoomba Gap, then yet another alpine battle atop Mount Buller, before finishing at Melbourne's Botanic Gardens. There are 4 World Tour teams on the start line, each of them with a target on their back, as the best of Australia's next crop of international stars are out to take a big scalp and show just how good they are. Who will join the honour roll in 2020?
Hello and welcome to the 67th edition of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour. It's Mitchelton Winery which is hosting the start of the opening stage. Shepparton is the destination. Matthew Keenan with you, joined by David Mckenzie. And David Mckenzie, this is a race that is near and dear to your heart. So too is the town of Shepparton. But as you look through that honour roll, there's some of the greats of the sport, Wiggins and Froome, who we've mentioned, but importantly, it's been a launching pad for a lot of riders. And Simon Gerrans in 2005, when he won, this was a defining moment of his career, and that could be the case in 2020 for somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. Hello to you and hello to all of our viewers. Look, it's got a rich history, this race. It's been going for a long time, Australia's oldest stage race. And the honour roll, as you say, it is packed full of stars, Tour de France winners, and people like Simon Gerrans, Simon Clark, Cameron Meyer, young Australians who were young back then, and that's how they cut their teeth into the pro ranks. And so it is a real form guide for future reference for professionals.
The stage gets underway in Nagambie, which is a beautiful part of the world, around about 40 kilometres to the south of Shepparton, perhaps an hour and a half drive to the north of Melbourne, the home of black caviar. It's based on the lake. There's plenty of rowing that is done up here. There's also lots of holiday makers with the caravan park that is right on the lake. Great place to eat and drink as well. It's got the brewery, the distillery. It is a beautiful part of the world, and it is hosting the start of the opening stage of the 67th edition of the race. The sign-on is always a moment before, particularly the first stage, where you get the sense of anticipation. The Nero team, they have a young climber, Jay Vine, who's really strong. He'll be looking forward to stages 2 and 4, but there's a lot of other young hopes as well. The new team out of New Zealand, I'm looking forward to seeing what they've got to offer, and Mark O'Brien leading the Quarter Mentha team.
Yeah, there is. Look, there's great to have Israel Startup Nation here as well, and of course EF Education First there. But what about this man, Simon Yates from Mitchelton Scott, one of the world's best climbers and a former Vuelta a España winner.
Yeah, he will be one of the big targets. Let's now head down to the start line where Pat Shaw is catching up with some of the big favourites.
James Whelan from EF Education First race of the season. How's it going to play out?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this week pans out. Yeah, as you said, first race of the season. Excited to get the ball rolling. It's sunny today. We're here at the Mitchelton Wines, and yeah, we've got a good team, pretty motivated, and yeah, all the boys are going pretty well. So.
Yeah, it's already the third race with Sunweb, and I'm still excited as the first one. So yeah, I can't wait to start.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the stage. Obviously, like on paper, it definitely looks like it'll just be a straight up bunch kick. It's very flat. The wind's maybe a bit stronger than what I thought it was, but I still don't think it'll play that huge of a role. But we'll just have to stay up the front to make sure. In terms of the rivals, I guess Team Sunweb have a very good sprinter in Alberto Denez, third at Race Torquay, as well as Mitchell and Scott have Caden Groves, who was fourth at Race Torquay. So yeah, they're probably the two biggest teams. Then I think they'll definitely try and bring it back together and line it out for a sprint.
Well, they're the favourites according to Nick White for today's stage, but the race itself, the overall race, this is as mountainous as it gets in the Southern Hemisphere. Let's take a look at the overall course, which all gets away at the Mitchelton Winery in Nagambie before heading through to Shepparton. It's predominantly based up in the northeast of the country. The second stage then takes them through to Falls Creek. The following stage, they get the opportunity to start in beautiful Bright. It's over the top of the climb at Toowoomba before heading down through Beechworth and into Wangaratta. Mount Buller is to be contended and all finishes in Melbourne. The opening stage is 121.9 kilometres, starts at the Mitchelton Winery in Nagambie and through to Shepparton. Predominantly flat roads, there's no King of the Mountains prizes up for grabs. There are 2 intermediate sprints along the way, and David Mckenzie, these are roads that you know well.
I do know well, and I can tell you what, they're pretty flat, they're pretty open, they're exposed. At the moment, as we sit here at the finish line, it's fairly calm. It is going to get up to 33 degrees today. That's the expected top. Don't be fooled by the graph there. There's not many hills at all. That sort of, you can see that the meterage gain there, it's not much at all. 150 metres in total, that's the height. So there is the possibility for some crosswinds if the wind does whip up today. And you can see from that map, they go in a roundabout way to get here. So there's a few turns. It'll be interesting. And then they come across at the end from Marupna. And it's more like a causeway. So it'll be a tricky finish.
Well, I'm interested to see the tactics, particularly from the Quarter Mentha team. And their team captain on the road is Mark O'Brien. He's one of the most experienced. Let's have a listen to what Mark had to say.
Talking tactics, stage 1, Nagambie to Shepparton. We're here at Mitchelton Winery and starting to pick up a bit of wind, so that could definitely play into it today. It's pancake flat for the day, so we'll have to see what happens. A few teams might try to split in the crosswinds, but in theory it could be it should be a bunch sprint, but Sun Tour has always been different things that happen every year, so been years where the big GC break's actually gone on stage 1 and everyone's happy, so got to be have your wits about you, but I'm thinking a bunch sprint at the end of the day.
Perfect. Well done.
I tend to agree with Mark O'Brien in terms of what we can expect today. I think it will be a bunch sprint finish, but we have seen in the past where it has been a case where the opening stage, we have seen a big breakaway, and that's been the result in terms of forming the general classification. That was the rollout at Mitchelton Winery. They're currently in the neutral zone, 2.9 kilometres neutral before the flag drops. And then the racing is on.
Yes, and look, I think there'll be a few nervous heads out there and bodies because they'll be thinking about the wind. And Mark O'Brien's saying there could be a little bit of wind. He thinks a bunch sprint. We'll just have to see what develops in the next hour or two because traditionally in this area, having grown up in this area, Matt, in the mornings it's beautiful. It's like almost a desert climate. Really cool mornings, and then it will heat up to 33 degrees. Back in Melbourne today, incidentally, it's only 22, so that's the difference that you get up here. But sometimes when it does heat up, that's when the wind whips up as well. So we'll keep an eye on it, and the teams would have discussed all that, though. Every team, they would have had their team meeting overnight, and a lot of the director sportives, quite a few of them, it's not the first time they've directed on this race, or some of them have raced this race as well, so they're well aware of this area.
They're still in the neutral zone. You can see the red flag is out of the lead vehicle, courtesy of Lexus of Blackburn. And quite a few of the riders from the Israel Startup Nation team towards the front. When you look through the 4 World Tour teams that are in the race, that's one of the teams. And there's no logical name that jumps off the page from that team as a potential winner of the race overall. Therefore, I expect them to be aggressive and really active on a day like this and perhaps look for a chance to steal a little bit of time before the race heads into the mountains.
Yes, I mean, as you said at the start, there's 4 World Tour teams in the race. So they think on the front foot all the time. They're thinking ahead of the curve, if you like, and certainly with some of the smaller, lesser-known teams, as good as some of the young talent is, they're not as experienced as the riders on the World Tour team. So they'll be keeping an eye. But teams like Breach Lane, they will keep those 4 World Tour teams honest throughout the week. That is for sure. We know that. Oliver's Real Food Racing, another team that's been around for a few years now. And of course, we saw there Mark O'Brien riding for Quarter Mentha Australia. Look, they will be buoyed by the results of those riders at the Cadell Evans Great Ocean Road Race on the weekend just gone. They were brilliant. Carter Turnbull winning the sprint classification and the King of the Mountains classification. He's in this race as well. So they'll be pumped up, ready to go. And look, it is the traditional Australian team in this race, so they'll want to put their best foot forward.
The pink colours off to the right-hand side of the screen, a little bit of an adjustment to the shoes. EF Education first. They've got a few cards to play throughout this race. They have Nielsen Powless and James Whelan, who we've spoken about as potential winners for the race overall. Plus they have Marino Hofflin for the sprint finish. But I'm getting the impression number 22 has caught your attention, David.
Yes, absolutely. Rob Power. He's look. He was. I covered him over at Tour Down Under, as you did, Matt, and it was great to see him coming back into some form. He faded a little bit on the final day. Race start, kilometre 0.
Okay, what happened to race?
So it looks like they're about to get underway. The red flag is still in. I can just see it ahead. There we go. So the red flag is still out, I should say, meaning they are not starting. I think there's been a mechanical from another rider at the rear there. So I think they would be waiting. They've heard from the chief has been radioed that there's been a mechanical. So they will wait until that rider rejoins. I just saw him disappear off the camera. I think it was another Sunweb rider, in fact, a teammate of Rob Powers. And then we'll get the race underway. The riders are not in any real hurry to get underway. It's the first day of 5, and some of them already, Matt, as we said, have had a lot of racing in the legs, and we're only just a month into the year.
Number 92, that's Michael Freeberg, who last year won the Australian National Road Championships and missed out on getting a ride at the Santos Tour Down Under. He didn't get to ride the Santos Tour Down Under this year either, so I'm anticipating that he, along with his ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast team, will be super motivated to have a huge impact on this race. Hayden McCormack in the colours of New Zealand, the new Kiwi team, the Black Spoke Pro Cycling Academy, having a chat to Rob Power, who is kind of half Kiwi, half Australian. So there's a nice bond already between these two.
If you can go back, that would be good. Either that or off it.
What are your expectations for the Black Spoke team?
I think they're young. They've got a couple of older riders on the squad. They're in Hayden McCormack, who we just saw then, and James Oram. But they've got some of the best young talent out of New Zealand. This is a step up for the young talent, so it's a real test for them here.
The reason they're still in the neutral zone is there's been a front wheel puncher for Michael Storer. So whilst that's happened in neutral, and this is always the case, there's no favouritism. It could be any rider. They'll wait till everybody is back in the peloton, then the flag will come in.
Yes, I think it's a good test for the New Zealand team. One of my former teammates and good friend, Scott Guyton, he is the general manager of that squad, and he's here directing this week. So he's had success here himself, in fact. I think he was second overall before. He was a great teammate, loyal teammate, and he'll be directing the New Zealand squad.
Number 107 just coming out of the picture, that's Conor Murdoch from Oliver's Real Food Racing. He's a rider that we'll be really looking forward to tomorrow's stage and the Mount Buller stage, and I'm anticipating he'll get in the breakaway before hitting the base of the climb. He can't go toe-to-toe with the likes of Simon Yates or Nielsen Powless, but if he gets into the breakaway, he's half a chance of a high placing on the stage. There he is, number 107 in the green colours. He's got a reasonably strong team around him. That's Riley Fleming, number 105. They've also got Angus Lyons, who wears number 101 for that team, and he is an exceptional climber.
Cameron Meyer towards the back there in the Australian National Road Championship colours. Just off to the left there, Meyer. He'll be nice and relaxed. He's had a pretty good summer as well. I think it was Sam Bewley just next to him there. And of course, they've got Damien Housen, former winner of this race as well. So
got two former winners on that team.
Yeah. No, look, it's an important race for the squad. Here we go. The flag is in just like that, Matt, and they are immediately underway. And the first attack of the day coming from the Quarter Mentha Australian national team. And
this should come as no surprise after the performance by Carter Turnbull on the weekend in the Cadell Evans Great Ocean Road Race, where he was in 2 breakaways. He picked up the sprint prize, the King of the Mountains prize, and he stole a lot of camera time, deservedly so. They are on the attack. Bridge laner there as well. That's Ben Hill that's managed to go off the front. This is Nero Racing with the purple on the sleeves. And David, the tactics are pretty clear from the Quarter Mentha Australian national team. They have 2 riders in that move.
Yes, and look at that straight away. A quick gap here has opened up. So they haven't messed around at all. And you're right, Angus Lyons for Oliver's Real Food Racing. Another quality rider getting in that first attack of the day, and the peloton seemingly uninterested, in fact. You can see here one more rider, and is that number 73, Ryan Kavanagh, trying to go across there? I think it might be.
St. George Continental, and he'd be a good rider to have in this group. He is full gas trying to get there.
I was going to say, he's got to get there.
He can't quite get on the wheel. They're almost within reaching distance.
Yep.
But it's not that simple. They won't be waiting for him.
No, and look at this.
Not at this point. He is full gas. The ears are pinned back, but it might not be enough because they have the throttle open out in front.
They've got the throttle open, and the thing is, you've got 5 guys out in front, rotating turns, full gas, and I am not convinced. I thought he was going to get there like 30 seconds ago. He looked like he was 40 metres off the back, and I'm not sure he's going to get there now. I think he's done.
And the body language is showing the signs of legs that are full of lactic acid. He has gone into the red zone. He's not surrendering. He's a reasonably good prologue rider, Ryan Kavanagh. He's surrendered.
Done.
That's the clutch is in. You can see he's gone self-massage after 2 kilometres. That's how quick they're moving out in front.
I'm not sure if he was warmed up for that, and I think he's realised, and you're right.
It's not a comment on Ryan Kavanagh. It's a comment on the strength of the leading group and just how hard they are working.
Yeah.
And here they are. Chris Miller. No, this is the back of the group. Sorry, this is the back of the peloton. Chris Miller's been sitting at the back, number 122. 22, Rob Power sitting at the back, keeping the powder dry. Rob Power, is a guy that we don't expect to see in the action today. Just keeping himself out of trouble and looking forward to the mountaintop finish at Falls Creek tomorrow.
And this is another rider, is it trying to go, or is this at the back of the... No, it's one more rider trying to go across to the breakaway there. But I tell you what...
It's Nero Continental.
I'm not sure he's going to get there either.
Well, Nero Continental had a rider in the leading group, unless it was one in that leading group that had a mechanical problem. So this is Angus Lyons, who's in the group. Quarter Mentha team. It is... of 44, David Williams, and Carter Turnbull has made the move for that squad. Shubaki is the rider in the white colours. The blue colours now coming through. This is Ben Hill, who is always super aggressive. Jesse Coyle is there as well from Nero Continental. He's a strong climber, Jesse. He'll be very pleased that he's managed to get himself into this leading group.
So 6 riders there, and well, they've got organised very quickly indeed. I mean, you have to, don't you? They all obviously had it in their minds to go on the attack. They would have discussed this this morning or last night in their team meetings. Let's go on the attack as soon as the red flag comes in.
This is a really good move. This is exactly what Mark O'Brien spoke about, that the first stage of the Herald Sun Tour, the opening day, you just never know. A good move can sneak a fair bit of time and put them into contention. It's a short stage, 121 kilometres, so I'm not anticipating that they'll be given a lot of latitude by the main peloton. Number 51 at the back of the peloton in the blue colours on the left-hand side of the screen, David. That's Marcus Cooley, who was super impressive at the recent national championships.
Yes.
I think he's a dark horse for a podium finish overall.
There's a few of those Australians here, I think, and possibly a couple of foreigners as well. They're a dark horse. They might slip under the radar ever so slightly. We've seen it in the past here at this race, and I think that's what we like about it. And they come here at the start of the season super motivated. They've been training at home in Australia. They're ready to race. They want to race hard. And for a lot of these young guys, this is the biggest race they'll do in the season. So the motivation, the morale and the fitness and everything is sky high when you've got even the likes of Simon Yates. I spoke to Simon Yates at Tour Down Under, incidentally, after the Wollonga stage. And I said, how'd you go? I said, how'd you feel? And he said, I need judo to tell you for me if I'm going to follow Richie Port on Wollonga. So he said Richie was, incredible. As we know, Richie Port, he's pretty much been the king of that climb over there. But so they're not at the top of their game. Simon Yates, as good as he is, he's not at the top of his game. The middle ground for him will just about climb better than most riders here.
Yeah.
But there's someone that will step up and be close.
He wasn't far off it on Paracombe. I think I've gone too early with the blue highlighter, David.
Yeah.
I've highlighted that breakaway. This is Chris Miller at the back.
It's surprising, isn't it?
Then we did that turnaround. Well, yes and no. Yeah, because you normally expect that first breakaway to get given a little bit of ground, but it's a short stage, 1:21. It's flat and it's fast, and everybody is super motivated.
Yeah.
They want a piece of the action. This is a huge response coming from the peloton, and it's the St. George Continental team leading the chasing. That's the team of Ryan Kavanagh, who tried to go across by himself, but he missed the move.
Wow, that is, yeah. I mean, honestly, the way the bunch fanned across the road initially, I thought they'll be straight out to 1 minute. They haven't at all. So, of course, St. George Continental, they had a clear goal to make that move, and they missed it, and it's cost them. But now, a flurry of counter-attacks
This is the
coming across.
ARA team from the Sunshine Coast. This is the team of Michael Freeberg, and it looks like it could be Michael Freeberg. It's a big figure.
Yes, it does look like him, doesn't it? But
big and strong, fair chance.
It's all going to come to no avail because it's closed back up here, and now we've got peloton together. So this is a quick start, very quick start indeed. Now, watch for the counter-attacks here.
Well, now I'm going to have to get rid of the blue highlighter, and I'm
mark
going to move to the pink highlighter for the next breakaway.
I'll tell you what, you're forgiven, because I was about to mark the break as well as the break of the day, and it hasn't happened.
And now Angus Lyons in the green colours of Oliver's Real Food Racing. 1 kilometre to the first of the intermediate sprints. It's High Street Nagambie, and the first sprint comes after just 9.5 kilometres. So back in the peloton, they're racing for the time bonuses. This is exceptional.
I think we're all right out here, Stu, aren't we?
Number 36 at the back of the peloton, that's James Piccoli, the Canadian from Israel Startup Nation. One of 3 Canadians, incidentally, on that. In fact, one of 4 Canadians on that team. He's not going anywhere, surely, on his own with the peloton breathing down his neck like that.
Well, is he?
500 metres to go.
He'll get close, but I think he might be brought in here.
This is the Sapura team in the blue colours. They're coming to the front, and I get the impression that they're chasing a time bonus for Marcus Cooley.
Well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you?
And the sprint is on. Nick White is amongst it for the Bridge Lane team. Marcus Cooley is looking for maximum points. A 3-second time bonus to go with it.
Ooh.
It's Nick White. Perhaps it's Cooley. That is a photo. We'll wait for confirmation.
That is 100% a photo finish, that one. I thought White had it, and then the line suddenly came up quicker than what we thought. Look, it could mean the jersey at the end of the day. It could mean the yellow jersey. So, and the way it all came back together then, I tell you what, if you were a sprinter, you had every reason to go for that first intermediate sprint.
Well, let's take another look at that sprint after just 9.5 kilometres. That was rapid. And it looks like it is the blue colours of the Sapura team on the nearest side of the road, or is it in the middle?
Oh,
yeah.
No, there
Cooley.
you go. Yeah, Cooley got it.
Ahead of Nick White. And now the counter-attack straight away as soon as they go through the sprint. Next move.
Well, the intermediate sprints, so there was 6, 4 and 2. That's the points allocation there. So 6, 4, 2. And I think it's 3, 2, 1 bonus seconds. Confirm that, but well done, Marcus Cooley. The name we've already become familiar with now. As Matt said, his National Road Championship performance was absolutely brilliant. And he's another one of those riders. He's riding with some confidence here. Wants to show his face now.
Meanwhile, back in the peloton.
There's 44, David Williams. He was the rider.
He was in the break.
The team, yep, in the move initially. So he's taking in the oxygen now, having a breather.
Number 41 from that team, that's Mark O'Brien. He's the only rider on that team not eligible for the Best Young Rider classification. He's the captain on the road, Mr. Experience. And he's so reliable.
Well, it's interesting, he's sort of half retired, not quite though, and he's just kept it going. He rides a reduced program these days, Mark O'Brien, but he's a quality rider, and he will be really good for those young guys on the quarter Menford team.
It wasn't Marcus Cooley collecting the points at the intermediate sprint. It was his Dutch teammate, the sprinter Roy Efting, who got the maximum points there. Second place went to Nicholas White, And third place from the St George Continental team was Craig Wiggins. So good result from Nick White. Nice result from Roy as well, winning that intermediate sprint. He's chasing the points classification more so than the time bonuses. In fact, all three of those riders will be chasing the points classification rather than the time bonuses.
Well, they're moving along, I should say. They're going to have it'll be a fast average speed today. It's beautiful conditions, starting to warm up now, but it is a perfect day for a bike race at the moment. Not too hot. As I said, sort of cooler, fresher mornings you get up in this northeast part of the state. And of course the Goulburn River flows through the town of Shepparton, through Nagambie as well. It's quite a long river. Flows through a few parts of where the race travels today.
Nice one, photographer. Nice one.
Incidentally, Craig Wiggins, who was third in that sprint, no relation to Bradley Wiggins. He's from Western Australia, Craig Wiggins. He's got 5 sisters. All of them race as well, and he generally gets the job of fixing their bikes for them in exchange for him not having to do some of the house chores. He cuts a deal with them each time. And one of his youngest...
That's a good deal. I think I'd do that.
His youngest sister, whose name just escapes me at the moment, it won't for too much longer, because she is a force to be reckoned with on the bike. And I'm sure that she'll be somebody that we'll be talking about at not just a national level, but at an international level in years to come.
So EF getting amongst the action here. Mitchelton Scott just hovering near the front. Team Bridge Lane also on the attack there. But at the moment, it's so fast. It's so difficult to try and break away here. They're doing 45, 50 kilometres an hour. Look at that. There's you get a better idea of the speed that they're doing here.
And that was Jesse Coyle, number 121 from the Nero Continental team from the Breakaway. Now he's down in the back after going through that intermediate sprint. They're just looking to catch his breath.
Yeah.
Number 72 in the black and pink colours, that's Sebastian Berwick. He was good at the national championships in the under-23 road race, and he was a rider that almost disappeared from the sport. He spent a couple of seasons in France with the feeder team for AG2R Le Mondial. It's good to see him back racing at this level. That Angus Lyons, again, in the green colours from Oliver's Real Food Racing. He's not very sociable today. He wants to get away from everybody.
No, these smaller teams, domestic teams, and some of the domestic foreign teams, they've got one ambition here at the start in the first hour, and that is to force a breakaway, and they won't be content until something goes clear. But the problem is you've got about 10 teams that want to be part of the action, and you can see now they're all chasing Bridge Lane, Oliver's Real Food Racing, marking it at the front there. So a number of teams here trying to get involved. But again, flat roads today, barely a hill. Highest elevation is about 150 metres.
And it's not super windy either.
No, not at the moment, is it? I keep looking. We're at this finish line, and we're out in the open. And we've got these nice big trees about 200 metres further down. In fact, right near the finish line. They're barely moving. They're barely moving.
We're in a magnificent spot. We've got the parklands, we've got the swimming pool, we've got the tennis courts just nearby. We're a short walk from the centre of town to go to the cafes and so on. Welford Street Cafe just up the road has delivered magnificent coffee to start the day. It's a beautiful setting in Shepparton.
Yeah.
Number 52 at the back of the peloton in the blue colours, that's Roy Efting, the Dutchman. He's a quick sprinter, Roy, and he showed that in the first of the intermediate sprints. He's gained the maximum points in the race for the sprint classification.
Yeah, he'll sit back now. Job done. Well, for the time being at least. There's 2 intermediate sprints
The next one is about 19 kilometres from the finish line.
Yeah.
Let me just confirm
Yeah,
that. It is
102.
19.3 kilometres from the finish line.
Yeah. Yeah, so plenty of riders looking over their shoulder, trying to see if they're getting a gap. Team Bridge Lane now. Once again, just trying to force something here.
Sprint classification, it's the race for the Bright Brewery points classification. Number 22, Rob Power in the red colours. He's spending a lot of time at the back. He's not paying too much concern about any of the breakaways today. He's had a pretty big summer so far. This is the kind of race, though, that could be a breakthrough moment for Rob Power, as it was for Simon Gerrans. Believe it or not, David Mckenzie, 15 years ago.
I know, it's hard to believe, isn't it? It is. Yes, very hard to believe. The first of Simon Gerrans' Jayco Herald Sun Tour wins.
First of 3 and a 4-time winner of the Tour Down Under.
Yeah,
Dual stage winner at the Tour de France, winner of 2 monuments throughout his career, and just retired at the end of 2018. Jesse Coyle, number 121, who was in that initial breakaway. Number 74, that's Daniel Gandy in the black and pink colours of St George Continental. A team that races a lot throughout Asia, and I wonder how the crisis in China at the moment with the virus will impact on their racing calendar.
Well, there's a lot of races on the Asian circuit, as we know, and look, I think it's a waiting game, isn't it, at the moment, the next couple of months to see.
This is Ben Hill once again in the blue colours for Team Bridge Lane, and he's joined by Conor Murdoch. That's the guy we spoke about earlier from Oliver's Real Food Racing. Conor wants a piece of the action.
Yeah, no surprises with Ben Hill. This is so classic him, and now we see a bit of a gap. Another 2 riders, so the bigger teams here, the 4 World Tour squads, may not be too concerned. 4 riders in a breakaway, that's not too dangerous. It's a break that they can probably control. Smaller teams, no World Tour teams represented. These 2 look like they're going to get across. They're making rapid progress. They'll get established.
Ryan Thomas in 2nd position. And he is joined by Charles Etienne Crichton. And for the leading 2, they can't wait for these 2 guys.
No.
They can maybe back off just a smidgen,
2%,
just a little bit.
Just a tiny bit, yeah. I mean, they're going to get there. And then they'll effectively give them a 30-second recovery, or they should. That's about all they're allowed. And then they've just got to commit for the next 10 kilometres just to establish this break and establish a bit of a time gap. And then they can sort of settle into their rhythm. And then I'm sure we'll get a shot of the peloton. I'm eager to see whether the peloton is still fanned across the road. There we go. They are at the moment, and they're freewheeling at the back here, so that says the pace is off. So now we could see the break of the day.
Well, that's good for the 4 out in front.
Yep.
And they've covered around about 15 kilometres or so of the 121 Ks. So 4 riders out in front, none of the World Tour teams represented, and Conor Murdoch in the green colours. You can see by the way the hips are rocking and rolling ever so slightly. They are full gas. It's Ben Hill now at the front.
Well, the peloton have really, they've really shut it down now. They're content to let those 4 go away. Happy with the composition out in front. Ben Hill, he's a real aggressor, isn't he? He's done a lot of racing in Asia over the years with some success as well. He won the general classification in the Tour de Tochigi, and then of course general classification Tour of Thailand as well back in 2016.
That is super aggressive.
Yeah.
Keep going.
No, stage win in the Tour of Japan as well. So races, you know, they're not just your sort of, they're second tier, but they're quality bike races as well. A lot of sort of general classification results there. A lot of top 5s overall. Tour of Philippines, 4th overall.
The rider in the yellow colours, a young Canadian, just 20 years of age. That's Charles Christian Crichton. He's riding his first season with this team. He's raced throughout Asia. He rode the Tour of Langkawi last year, the Tour of Qinghai Lake, where he had some pretty consistent performances. He also had some strong rides 2 years ago, the Tour of Utah. So he copes with the climbs pretty well based on his performances in those races. Number 3, this is Sam Bewley. Sam Bewley has a couple of jobs to do for his team. Predominantly, he's the bodyguard on the road for Simon Yates and Cameron Meyer. And then when he gets down to the last 5 kilometres, he's a key part of the lead out for one of the favourites for today's stage, Caden Groves. There's number 1. There's Simon Yates.
No surprises. Yates, he's I tell you what, I think we spoke about it, Matt, a couple of weeks ago. As a director sport EF, I'd get nervous a few times. He sits on the back so much. I know right now I'd say fine. It's a flat day. There's no wind. The breaker's established. But gee, you see him do it at key moments in Europe, key races, big races. But he's got this knack of when he needs to be at the front, he gets his way to the front. But gee, even as a teammate, I'd be having some anxiety attacks when he's your team leader, the guy that you're working for to potentially win the race.
Well, number 5, Nick Schultz, and number 3, Sam Bewley. Normally, under these circumstances, they'd be riding a lot closer to the front, but they're riding at the back, so as they're sticking with Simon Yates. If he asks to go to the front, or if he has any sort of mechanical problem, they're there to support. 21 kilometres covered. We're down to 100 kilometres to go on stage 1 of the 67th edition of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour. Breakaway group of 4, they're now out to an advantage of more than 1 minute. In the green colours at the front, that's Conor Murdoch, who's driving the tempo. Next in line is Ben Hill from Team Bridge Lane. It's then Charles Etienne Cretin in the yellow colours. And at the back of the group, number 93, that's Ryan Thomas from ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast. This is a good group. Out to a minute. Well, it's blown out already to 1:44 because back in the peloton there's been a few riders taking a nature break.
Yes, and when you mentioned the Mitchelton Scott guys down towards the back there, we see Cameron Meyer as well, just pulling off to the right there. No stress, and what that tells me is there's no wind, because if you've got the World Tour teams sort of hanging around the back, they're not concerned about the conditions at all. And this gap now will blow out way over 2 minutes. I'm sure about that very quickly, and even more. Look at them. You've got EF, Sunweb fanned across the road there. Meanwhile, you've got 4 riders in a team's time trial format here, rotating turns, and there's a 5th rider trying to get across. Oh, gee, this is an effort.
Continental colours, David Mckenzie. Yet again, they had Jesse Coyle in the first of the breakaways. This is a huge performance to come across. It's Jesse again. That's number 121. So Jesse Coyle bridging the gap on his own.
He's gone late. I tell you what, he left it late, but I think he'll get there.
There's no individual time trial in this race unless you're Jesse Coyle.
It's a big effort. This is a big look. The camera makes them look a bit closer, but he is getting closer. He'll get there. Yep. It'll cost him. He'll burn a few matches in the process, though.
And when he gets there, he's got to sit on for a few kilometres short.
They'll allow him, I think. They'll give him a little bit of reprieve. Big effort, and he's just turning that gear.
He's a former winner of L'Etape Australia by the Tour de France up in Jindabyne. But look at the rocking and rolling for Jesse Coyle as he's almost on. And he's just screaming out internally, can you wait just for a moment, please?
It's effectively it's like he's probably done a 5 kilometre prologue.
Yeah,
and they are just full gas. They're beyond your threshold. They're maximum effort. Don't blow up. Try and hold it together, and he's going to get there now. And believe it or not, even at this point, he will just start to feel the little effect of the slipstream.
And the psychological effect.
Exactly. Psychologically, he knows, okay, I'm going to get there now. Doesn't mean he can ease off. Now he can start to just ease it off.
Look at the bounce up and down on the saddle, though. He's no longer smooth. He's got a fantastic technique, Jesse Coyle, but at this point, it goes out the window ever so slightly.
When he's jumped, I would say they were probably at about a minute 30, minute 20. So at a minute 30, he's attacked.
Wow.
They're now at 2:14. He's taken 45 seconds himself out of the peloton, chasing a group that's going away from the peloton. That's a big effort.
That is fantastic performance by Jesse Coyle to be able to make it across. Look at the shaking of the head.
Yeah, I think he called him in. He's like, "Come on, guys, just give me a minute.
Give me 5.
Let me collect my lung off the side of the road, put it back in.
In. Yep, please.
Yeah, and you can see at the moment
they understand.
They understand. They'll give him a little bit. They'll give him maybe a turn each, and then they'll say, "Okay, come on, you've outstayed your welcome."
How long can he get away with sitting at the back before he disrupts their rhythm?
Well, let's watch. I'd say a turn each, maybe 2 turns each maximum.
Ryan Thomas is back for the conversation. Ryan Thomas has given him the let's work now.
Yeah.
That's not long to recover.
It's not long. It's not long, is it? No, I think he was entitled to at least a turn each. And if they're doing sort of 20-second turns, you know, you've got about a minute and a half recovery. The thing is now, he's still on the wheel. So he's still getting a sit. So he hasn't hit the wind, you know, for about 60 seconds now. He'll get another maybe 30 to 60 seconds reprieve. It's not much.
What are you laughing at, David Mckenzie?
Well, I'm glad I'm sitting commentating these days and not in that position. And you're the same. We've both been there, done that.
Well, I'll tell you who's almost in the breakaway and in a really comfortable seat is Pat Shaw, and he joins us now. Pat, what an effort by Jesse Coyle to get across to that breakaway.
Yes, he certainly spent a lot of energy, but I tell you, he hasn't wasted any time. Straight into the echelon, he's working towards the front, about to take his first turn on the front of this very strong group of 5 riders.
What do you make of the race so far? That first break, it wasn't given any ground because of that first intermediate sprint. Do you think this breakaway stands a chance of maybe causing an upset?
Well, there's 2 ways to look at it. You're absolutely right. We expected it to be together for that first intermediate sprint. These 5 riders, they might not stay away themselves, but if the race does turn a little bit hectic later on in crosswinds and the peloton comes across, we have seen many a time in stage 1 of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour, a split peloton joins this breakaway of 5, and then the breakaway of 5, maybe one of the riders can get.
Pat, that was going to be my next question. What were the conditions like this morning? And you're en route to the finish. Is there any wind about at all?
There's significant wind, and in Australia, as you know, Mac, anything more than 20 kilometres an hour of wind is enough. And there's plenty of wind out here. At the moment, though, it's straight on. So there's no crosswinds in this current section of the race, but the front group of 5 working extremely well. And with guys like Murdoch, Jesse Coyle and Ben Hill, they're going to be able to work all day long, these riders. And I can see them really causing a big headache for the big teams like Sunweb and Mitchell and Scott, who won a bunch sprint today.
From your chats that you had with riders at the sign-on at Mitchelton Winery, which were the names that kept coming up as the favourites for today's stage?
Well, the obvious ones, Caden Groves and Alberto Danese, both teammates last year. They know each other really well. They were the most confident on the line. They're both very tempered athletes too, so not too much, they weren't too worried about the day. They were pretty confident they could get it back for a bit in bunch sprint. But the riders that came up of note after that were certainly Craig Wiggins and Nicholas White, both who took points in the first intermediate sprint. And last but not least was the rider from Israel Startup Nation, Mckenzie, and he's shown already form is good in the summer of cycling.
So who do you think will do the chasing of the breakaway?
He just put his hand. The race to the breakaway is definitely going to be done by Team Sunweb and EF Education first. I feel like they're the teams that are really looking for a big victory here today.
Marino Hofflin will be one to watch in the sprint finish. For the general classification, who's your tip? Who's your favourite?
I actually like James Whelan as a bit of an outside from EF Pro Cycling. I just think it's his first race of the season. He's known since November that this is how he would start the season. So he's had the ability to shape his training regime accordingly for this course. The 2 mountaintop finishes will suit him, but obviously the big name on the start list, Simon Yates, and he performed well at Tour Down Under. So they're the 2 riders that I think we've got to keep our eyes on.
What about Rob Power?
Well, I saw Rob Power on the start line, and along with his teammate Jai Hindley, they do have a young team here and focused on Alberto Danese today. But those 2 riders obviously stand out on the start list as well.
Pat, good chatting to you. We'll catch up with you throughout the race, and we'll see you here at the finish line in Shepparton.
No worries. Good call, guys.
Pat Shaw out on course. He's hosting the interviews at the start, the sign-on. He'll be doing the venue announcing at the finish line, and we'll be catching up with him throughout the race. And the good news is, David Mckenzie, we've got him on the text message every now and then. He provides us with some information from out on the course that the cameras can't necessarily pick up. He's got a very astute eye.
He has, Pat, and he knows this race well, obviously, and it is good this year. We've gone up another notch. We're just covering even more angles of this race, if that is possible. So
this is the most coverage we've ever had in the history of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour.
Yep.
It's the first time we've had coverage of every single stage. It's fantastic.
No, it is great. Now we see the peloton. Now it's strung out a bit more here. So we talk about the chase and the camera here panning up towards the front. We'll get an idea to see who is actually chasing. And look at that, it's the World Tour squads. Mitchelton Scott, Team Sunweb, Israel Startup Nation and EF. So they have taken control. They said, okay, fine, this is the way you're going to play it. We will just get on the front as 4 strong teams. They know they have to. They know they have to take some authority at some stage, and they're smart. They know not to let it blow out to 6, 7, 8 minutes. You do that, although these are smaller teams, you let them blow out too much, suddenly you've got 5, 6 guys swapping turns, full gas to the finish. You need at least 10 to bring that margin back in, and that's why they won't let it go out too much more.
Well, Pat Shaw has just sent us the text message. He's in the car where he's got access to race radio, and the gap between the leading group of 5 riders and the peloton was at 3:13 just a moment ago when Pat sent the text message. That's now been updated. It's coming down pretty quickly. The chase is on. This is Israel Cycling Academy. This is Omar Goldstein, who's at the front doing the chasing for that team.
Yeah, the Israeli rider. He was the only Israeli rider in the Tour Down Under. And his teammate there delivering some water bottles up to him. So one rider has the duty of heading back to the cars. This is where it's hard when you've got a team on the front chasing, but someone has to go back and get water bottles. And it shows already, Matt, the temperature coming off the road, it's picked up. Remember, they're only so many kilometres into the race. They're not that long into the race, and already they're getting fresh water bottles.
92 kilometres remaining. The advantage for the Breakaway group is just on 3 minutes.
The high country is now really renowned as the destination for cycling. Having grown up in the area, did you always have that threat of fire and were well aware of it?
This summer we've had horrific bushfires, and having people come back, and it'd be good to see the trails getting filled up and the roads getting filled up with cyclists again.
You and I have had fortune to ride all over the world, and this matches anything I've done.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, we're so spoilt with the vineyards, the mountain views, it's just magic.
So the ride that we've done today, that's a road ride that I know pretty well, but you're famous for being a world champion on the mountain bike. You've got to take me off-road.
Yes, we've got Mystic Mountain Bike Park here and then 6 other amazing locations.
This is one of my favourite destinations. I'm coming back in Easter. Hopefully lots of other people come back as well and support the locals.
Cheers, mate.
This is the Breakaway group of 5 riders. This is stage 1 of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour. Dave Mckenzie, the good news and the bad news is tomorrow we go to Falls Creek. The good news is we get to watch the race go up Falls Creek. The bad news is we're going to have time in the morning to ride up Falls Creek ourselves. What's bad about that is I'm going to have to try and keep up with you. Alternatively...
You won't have much trouble, I'm telling you.
Just wait for me at the top, will you?
Yeah, look, you know what? And incidentally, can I just say, I know you won't. Well done on doing that trip up there. You only did that a week or 2 ago.
Monday after the Tour Down Under.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
We know what's happened in those areas, so it's great to bring the race up into those areas, Matt. And we all know it is such a beautiful part of the world.
How much time have you and I spent up there together? You and I camped there together for the first time in about 93.
Yeah. And it is
thereabouts.
It is a thriving Mecca now. The Bright Brewery, so many good eateries, so many great places to stay. So I think as a sport, we feel like we're doing our bit to sort of help the rebuild process.
I feel like it's my holiday home.
Yeah.
The high country.
Yeah, it is lovely.
And it's not just Bright, it's Mount Beauty as well. It's Myrtleford, it's that whole region.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fantastic. It was worth noting at the front of the peloton, that was Lockie Morton doing the chasing in the pink colours of EF Education First. One of the sprinters that we haven't spoken about much so far today is Marino Hofland, Dutchman, who rides with that team. And his father was a pretty good cyclist. His father was a good amateur cyclist and actually rode Paris-Nice on one occasion. Marino Hofland has been a stage winner in Paris-Nice, and he's named after the Italian cyclist Marino Argentin. You know what his brother's name is? Fausto Hofland.
Yeah, that's right.
Seriously.
No, that's extremes, isn't it?
Fausto Coppi and Marino Argentin. The names for the Hofland boys.
No pressure, guys. Number 7 there, Dion Smith, another New Zealander in the race. And there's Yates. He hasn't messed about.
Yeah.
He's moved towards the front, and now that tells me, okay, and it's interesting what Pat said. He believes there's plenty of wind out there, and there's enough if the direction of the road goes the right way or the wrong way, depending on where you are in the peloton. So we'll keep an eye on this, and this is where the smaller teams, they need to not get complacent. They're sitting back. You've got the World Tour teams doing all the work on the front, but be very, very wary and be very aware of when you make left turns, right turns, and a good director sport should be keeping you updated on that.
Also, don't underestimate the National Road Series teams, the continental teams in this race.
Yeah.
Just because you don't go head-to-head with them in the big races in Europe, there's a few riders in this peloton that the likes of Simon Yates will never have heard of before. I'm sure Simon Yates has never heard of Marcus Cooley before.
Yes.
But he finished third at the National Championships recently on a really tough mountainous course. So they're guys that cannot be underestimated. Take them for granted and you will pay the price.
Oh, yeah. Look, there's a handful of this talent here that is going to progress into high levels. We don't know that yet, and we're just getting to know them. But history tells us that there's a bunch of these riders that will progress, and so at some point they're going to do it, whether it's at this race or a couple of other races throughout the season or next season. So you've always got to be wary, and I think it's become a more even playing field, I think, in the last even decade, if you like. It really has, from the smaller teams, from the continental teams to the World Tour teams. And at races like this, wider roads, and yes, we've got 2 proper mountaintop finishes, but the teams, smaller fields, the smaller teams, they've got more of a chance to actually launch a challenge here and be competitive against the bigger teams.
And it's days like this where they can do that, probably more so than Falls Creek or Mount Buller, where it will just come down to a race of horsepower in many respects on those climbs.
Yeah.
But playing the tactical game on these sorts of stages gives them a little bit of a chance. 87.9 kilometres remaining. Their advantage is back underneath that 3-minute marker, but they'll be pretty happy with the situation. If you have just joined us, this is Jesse Coyle at the back of the group for the Nero Continental team. The yellow colours, that is Charles Etienne Creighton, young Canadian for that squad. Ben Hill has managed to make the move for Team Bridge Lane. He's in the blue colours. The green, Oliver's Real Food Racing, that's Conor Murdoch. And I've missed one. Ryan Thomas it is from ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast. That's the composition of the 5 riders out in front.
Through Murchison now, so one of the smaller towns, and you can see the big pub back there. They made the right-hand turn. All these old small country towns, every country town in Australia, there's one thing it has, a pub. And generally they serve pretty good meals, lunchtime meals. Good place to escape in the hot summer months. It gets very hot up here in the summer months.
Each of the World Tour teams, David, have put one rider from that team on the front. The pink colours, EF Education First. The red, Sunweb. The black and yellow is the Mitchelton Scott team. And then the white and blue, Israel Startup Nation.
There's been a little bit of there's been a committee meeting, a very short one. And they would have made the decision, okay, let's all just put one rider on the front, contribute to the chase, and we'll see what it does to the gap. And already they'd be happy to hear the feedback. It's working, and they've reduced it now below 3 minutes. So they've got this breakaway in check at the moment. But a right turn, and look at the road here, Matt.
It's so narrow.
It's narrow. This is where we'll watch this moment when the peloton turn right here. Doesn't seem to be a lot of wind, but we will keep an eye on it.
And I look at the sports directors from those key teams. Mitchelton Scott, they have Matt Wilson. He won this race overall in 2007. He's got a lot of respect for the race and he knows the roads pretty well. This is Ben Hill at the front of the breakaway. EF, Education First, they've got Tom Southam. Sure, he's British, but he spent a long time living in Bendigo. Another guy who knows the roads and respects the race. Luke Roberts from Team Sunweb, a South Australian who spent much of his teenage years living in Melbourne. His father was second overall in the race. Luke was second overall in the race. He'd love to win it as a sports director. And then from Israel Startup Nation, they have Eric Van Lanker, a Belgian, who is a former winner of Liège-Bastogne-Liège.
Yeah.
So he's a guy who's got bike IQ through the roof.
Yeah.
They're the men giving the instructions from the team car. Hence, we're seeing those teams already up towards the front, making sure that they're in the right position before that turn onto the narrow road.
Yeah, so the peloton now heading through Murchison, just past that pub once again. A little bit of road furniture there. They will make this right-hand turn very soon.
That's really narrow, that
It
road.
is, and if you look in the road book, I went down to just to see exactly where we are in the road book, and it's narrow road, caution. So that's what they're on, and look, they've been on it already for a few kilometres. You can see the breakaway though, they're almost in a dead straight line at the back, so that tells me the wind really isn't coming from any direction. If anything, maybe from the left of the screen, a fraction, but not much. So I don't think we'll see too much sort of damage here or nervous riders back in this peloton.
But you'd much rather be at the front.
You'd be hanging. If you were one of the smaller teams, you wouldn't be interrupting the chase. You don't want to get on the bad side of the World Tour teams, but you'd be sitting right behind them.
But I think, I'm hearing reports, there has been a crash at the back of the peloton. Pat Shaw is providing us with the update. A rider from Bridge Lane and another one from Israel Startup Nation.
Well, I'm not sure what's happened there. We'll try and see if our cameras have picked it up or picked up a replay of it. We'll keep you posted on that one.
It can cause a bit of tension within the peloton.
Yeah.
This road is a car and a half wide. There's not much room to move. If you're caught out of position and there is any wind and there's not much protection, you can find yourself in the second or third group before you know it. 2:49 now, the advantage for the leading group of 5 riders. A good spot to be for these 5.
Yeah, definitely. It's, look, when there's a bit of chaos, and if the tempo does go up and if it does split, again, you won't necessarily have a peloton bring them back. You might have a group of 20 or 30 riders bring them back, and suddenly these 5 find themselves in a select group at the front. So they've just got to keep riding along. They've got to rotate turns, not be concerned too much with that margin, but don't ease up yet. Just keeping on with their tempo.
Let's get down to Pat Shaw, who can give us an update as to what happened in the peloton. Pat, what happened?
Little touch of wheels in the peloton, Matt, and the worst affected was Israel Nation rider Ben Perry from Canada. He was the last to get up after that crash and looked quite sore. All riders are back up. There was a Bridge Lane rider involved in that crash as well, but they're now heading back through the convoy to rejoin the peloton.
We've just seen some images of it front on. It was at the back of the peloton as they were making their way around a left-hand turn. What do you think it will do to the mood in the peloton, because they're approaching some narrow roads?
Yeah, they certainly are, and the breakaway's on those narrow roads as we speak, and it's even difficult for a car to neutrally service the riders. So I think it's going to just remind the riders that although it's a beautiful day, there is wind about and they've got to concentrate.
Thanks, Pat. Keep the updates coming. Meanwhile, at the back of the peloton, you can see a couple of riders in the blue colours of the Sapura team. Number 51, that's Marcus Cooley. This is not a good spot for him to be, David.
No, it's, look, at the moment, it seems okay because they're across the road, but very quickly it can be one single line down the edge of the road. And look, the other thing to note, when it's like this, at times, this is the more dangerous point of a race. And when I mean dangerous, I mean potential for crashes, because everyone's a little bit anxious. They want to move up. They can't. The road's only so wide. And you can see here, they're really bunched up at the moment. It only takes a small touch of wheels, as we saw before with that small crash. So you just really have to have your eyes up, your head up here, paying attention what's going on ahead of you and what's going on around you, because very quickly, it doesn't take much for a touch of wheels and a rider or two can be down.
And difficult to move up on this stretch of road. Could have to go gravel side to improve your position in that peloton. Meanwhile, here's the breakaway. The green colours at the back, that's Conor Murdoch. Just in front of him in the black and blue colours, that's Ryan Thomas. In the white with a little bit of purple, that's Jesse Coyle. In second position in the yellow colours is Charles Etienne Creighton, 20-year-old Canadian. And also in the group in the blue colours of Team Bridge Lane is the ever-reliable Ben Hill. Conor Murdoch from Oliver's Real Food Racing with a hand up. He'll be pleased that he's made the breakaway. That's a team that was in the first breakaway as well. They were adamant they were going to be in the move.
Yes, yeah, they were pretty keen, weren't they? A few of the usual suspects. And They've just made that left-hand turn onto the Murchison to Truro Road. They effectively now go straight for quite some time.
Just seeing if we could eavesdrop on that conversation with Conor Murdoch.
Turn the volume up.
Looking to pick up a bit of the ambient noise, but not quite able to hear what Conor was saying. But there's not much they can do other than just keep rolling through in the same manner that they are. And thus far, the plan has been executed well, or is in the process of being executed well.
Well, they've got roughly 13, 14 kilometres on this road. It is as straight, and you can see it's widened back out here. Then what they'll do, they'll make another left-hand turn, and then they'll effectively do sort of one circuit, and they'll come back on that same road and then make the run in towards through to Truro, Marupna, and then back to into Shepparton, into the finish line. So that circuit is where we could see some action potentially if it's sort of the right time of the day. The wind might pick up, warmest part of the day as well. So at the moment, I don't think much will happen on this open, big wide open road that the break is on at the moment.
Whenever I hear the name of the town Marupna, I think roller derby.
They used to have a fantastic, as you know, the roller derby New Year's Eve.
Yep.
And I tell you what, whoever went away with the chocolates that night, they made a pretty good earner. And it was about a 30-second effort, wasn't it? 30 to 40 seconds. And you'd go through heats and then a semi and a final. And it was a great
and then New Year's Day racing at the Shepparton Velodrome.
Part of the Christmas carnivals, the Velodrome carnivals that sort of generally started at Echuca, Boxing Day. They had 2 days there. Traditionally, they went to Lavington for 2 or 3 days on the border there, Albury-Wodonga. They had a big 400-metre velodrome. Shepparton was always traditionally New Year's Day. I think Wangaratta had a day or two, and then in more recent years, Bendigo, Horsham. A lot of velodromes in the country area up here.
Yeah, peloton making the left-hand turn onto not the super narrow road at this point, but not far off it. At the back, the white and purple colours that you can see, that's the Nero Continental team. That's Ben Carman, number 123, down towards the back. He's got one teammate in the breakaway. He's got another teammate up towards the back with him. It's Miles Stewart, not the triathlete.
Yeah. Yeah, you do a double take. Wrong era too.
Yeah. Slightly different age bracket. Yep. Miles Stewart of this variety, number 126, is eligible for the best young rider classification. The triathlete he won the World Triathlon title in 1993 and is the current CEO of Triathlon Australia.
Yeah.
Doing a pretty good job in the process.
Yeah.
This is our breakaway. Ryan Thomas at the back of the group, stretching early on. Hank Vogels is the spectre for that team, and Hank used to love racing in these sorts of conditions. Flat, prospect of wind, a chance to cause some havoc, upset a few of the climbers. Hank will be very pleased with the fact that he's managed to get Ryan Thomas into the break.
Yes, and Hank, plenty of success at this race himself. He knows most of these stages or roads like the back of his hand, like a local in fact, so he'll look for any opportunity to upset the World Tour teams. Raced at World Tour level himself, obviously, for a number of years. So he's a good man to have in your ear, isn't he? And a motivator.
The 5 leaders working well together back in the peloton. They are under the control of the 4 big World Tour teams.
The high country is now really renowned as the destination for cycling. Having grown up in the area, did you always have that threat of fire and were well aware of it?
This summer we've had horrific bushfires, and having people come back, and it'd be good to see the trails getting filled up and the roads getting filled up with cyclists again.
You and I have had fortune ride all over the world, and this matches anything I've done.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, we were so spoilt with the vineyards, the mountain views, it's just magic.
So the ride that we've done today, that's a road ride that I know pretty well. But you're famous for being a world champion on the mountain bike. You've got to take me off-road.
Yes, we've got Mystic Mountain Bike Park here and then 6 other amazing locations.
This is one of my favourite destinations. I'm coming back in Easter. Hopefully lots of other people come back as well and support the locals.
Cheers, mate.
And we'll be heading to the Victorian High Country tomorrow. But first of all, David Mckenzie, we're in your hometown of Shepparton, and the community is thriving. It's also a great place to come and visit with the family, the caravan park, the huge pool, the motor museum, and it's got a wonderful tennis club with 26 courts, 23 of them grass, and it hosts some of the big country tournaments. And farming is a huge part of the region as well. So too, it's well renowned for its fruit growing with the Goulburn Valley fruits. Must be nice to be back, David Mckenzie.
It is nice to be back. Some great memories growing up here. I spent my teenage years, high school years here. Good memories, and you did right. It is a great country town to grow up in, and yeah, plenty going on. It's, you know, it's a fruit bowl of certainly Victoria, and big production. A lot of orchards out and around the town and beyond as well. And I'd spend my training days on the hot weather out riding out through the orchards. You'd pick a cheeky piece of fruit off one of the trees.
Did it have a real presence, the fruit growing element in the area when you were a kid growing up?
Look,
the amount of employment that it provided?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and probably sadly not as much anymore, but that's a sign of the times, I guess. But no, it really was. And no, every second person you knew, someone within their family worked in that industry. No, it was a big, Ardmona and SPC, Shepparton Preserving Company. They were the two big companies that sort of looked after and produced all of the fruit growing in this area. So they're on this nice wide road here. So they've got another 5-6 or so kilometres. Then they'll make a left-hand turn, and they'll do a small circuit sort of around the Waranga Basin as well. One of the big basins here that sort of looks after the water supply for the area. They'll sort of skirt around the edge of that, and they'll go in an anti-clockwise. It's sort of almost like an arrow shape, this circuit. But look at that, the peloton now. And is that still Lockie Morton on the front?
It is. This is stage 1 of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour from Nagambie through to Shepparton, 121 kilometres. There's a breakaway group of 5 out in front. They build up a maximum lead of 3 minutes and 18 seconds. Lockie Morton is the rider at the front of the peloton, and the pink colours doing the chasing. There has been a fall in the peloton. Most of those riders are about to rejoin. Amongst the men who crashed, Ben Perry from Israel Startup Nation. Pat Shaw, David Mckenzie, he's out on course and he's providing us with plenty of information. There were 3 riders from Team Bridge Lane caught up in that crash. Sam Hill was one of them. His brother Ben is currently in the breakaway. Also caught behind the fall was...
He's just taken the duties of getting water bottles there. So too Nick Schultz for Mitchelton Scott. So Schultz getting a pat on the back from Damien Housen there. And Schultz now handing a bottle out, going back through the line, making sure they've all got him. Dion Smith grabbing on. And speaking of farmers, there they are. Hot and dusty day to be out in it, although not as hot as what we've had in some of the summer days up here. They quite regularly get into the 40s in those real searing hot summer months. I was up here, in fact, Matt, just around the Christmas break. I still have some family up in this area, and yeah, we were hitting 40s about 3-4 days in a row between the Christmas and New Year period, which is pretty standard. They're pretty used
in that fall.
Well, what's my only thought is they're doing the right thing by riding close together as a team, but sometimes you're actually better off being spread out to spread your risk. Because if there is a crash in that one spot, well, you're highly likely a few of you are going to come down.
Mitchelton Scott in the black and yellow colours. Number 6, easy to spot because he wears the colours as the Australian national champion, and that is Cameron Meyer. Number 3, Sam Bewley. He's at the front doing the chasing. We spoke about him earlier on, about the multiple roles that he plays within the team. Once again, a reminder of the breakaway riders. Number 107 in the green, that's Conor Murdoch. Number 65, that's Ben Hill from Team Bridge Lane. One way to avoid the crashes is to get into the breakaway. Ryan Thomas is number 93. Just in front of him is Jesse Coyle from Nero Continental. He was the last rider to join that group. And in the yellow colours is a young 20-year-old Charles Etienne Cretin, who's managed to make it into this breakaway. He rides for the Volo team, which is managed by Jonathan Coulter, who's originally from Sydney. And this is a team, David Mckenzie, made up of all Americans and one Canadian. It's a team that I've never seen race before, and so far, I like what I see.
Yeah. Yep. They've gone on the front foot. Proactive, motivated. That's what you want. That's what any director sportif wants, and any sponsor of a team wants. Simon Yates, he's chose to start his season out here, and we're absolutely thrilled with it. He's had a full calendar of racing in Australia.
We had some good fun with him on Sunday night when he reenacted not getting a water bottle from somebody helping the Mitchelton Scott team at the Tour de France a couple of years ago. One of the guys that was on the race with the Mitchelton Scott team hadn't spent a lot of time at bike races before. In fact, he's one of the partners at Quarter Mentha. He was told, give the bottle only to the guys in the dark blue jersey. Guys in the dark blue jerseys came through. Somebody in a white jersey went to take one. He thought, no, this is not for you. Pulled it out of the way. It was Simon Yates in the white jersey, is the leader of the best young rider classification from that team.
Yeah, classic. It's a funny story. He thought it was funny. Probably didn't at the time. He was happy to have a laugh.
Time equals comedy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, 2:33, it's really stabilised. It's stopped, hasn't it?
They're working so well together. Look at the position at the front of Jesse Coyle. He's into the time trial position. If it was the mid-90s, he'd be on the Spinacci bars.
And look at the gear he's pushing compared to the others in the breakaway. He's turning the big gear. He's bigger, he's taller. He's got that sort of more leverage, whereas you look at number 117, Charles Etienne Chrétien, he's sort of pedaling. I like his cadence. He'll look after the legs.
Look at the hand positions of all the riders though in the breakaway.
Yeah.
They're all in the drop, so they're all looking for maximum aerodynamics. What are you anticipating, 45 k's per hour?
I was just about to say, you'd have to say 45, wouldn't you? That's quick. Yeah, it is moving. I mean, look at the distance. We're 71.9 kilometres to go. Race started at 10. Remember, they were slightly short.
They have covered 50 kilometres in around about an hour.
Yeah, it's 11:07, and remember they were delayed start,
slightly. So
they've done 50 kilometres in the first hour of racing, give or take.
Yeah, doesn't take a genius to work out the not so average speed.
Yes, it's very good.
This is Damien Housen. He won this race a few years ago, and he won laying the foundations with a stage victory up Falls Creek.
Yes, he did.
Happy memories for Damien tomorrow.
Yep.
And it's not a full gas chase from behind, but they're working pretty hard. And they've only reduced the advantage for the 5 litres down to 2 minutes and 34 seconds.
That's right. And if you think about what we've had in average speed, okay, they're not going to average 50 for the day, but we're less than 2 hours to race. We're about an hour, 35, 40 minutes left to race. So they will chase this group for the next hour at least. So we're going, these guys won't be caught, I wouldn't imagine, unless they absolutely falter. They won't catch them until we're inside the last 30 kilometres of racing, you wouldn't think. So they've just got to keep the pressure on the breakaway, and remember that they're assisting their teammates as well back in the peloton.
I've just received a text message from Pat Shaw saying that Nick White, who was involved in that fall, he's got lots of skin off and looks as if he's got an injured hip. Fingers crossed for Nick.
Yeah, that's not good, is it? Really active in that first intermediate sprint.
This is Florian Stork in the red colours. He'll be part of the lead-out train for Alberto Danesi, the Italian sprinter from Sunweb. Plenty of conversation. That's Max Cantor, who's the second of the riders in the red colours. Michael Storer also coming through. Michael Storer now, number 23. Part of a phenomenal generation of Western Australians, Michael Storer.
It's incredible, isn't it?
They are the owners of all the elite men's road titles at the moment. Sam Welsford, the Criterium. Luke Durbridge, the individual time trial, with the world champion Rowan Dennis in second position nonetheless. And Cameron Meyer, the road race.
Yeah.
And then you've got a guy like Luke Storer who barely gets a mention.
Michael Storer.
Michael Storer barely gets a mention. Jai Hindley, one of the favourites for this race. Robert Power, another favourite for this race. He's a Western Australian as well. There's a lot going right in Western Australian cycling.
There is. No, and you're dead right. It's the generation, isn't it? It's that's come out of there. It's very impressive indeed. And look, success breeds success. And you get the young guys, no doubt, training with Cameron Meyer a number of years ago, and his brother Travis at the time, who's now since retired. But
that's great. Conor Murdoch. Oliver's Real Food Racing is powering Conor Murdoch, and he's pretty happy with the situation.
Yep, he is. He's got a smile on the face at about 45 kilometres per hour. This is a real team's time trial, isn't it? With just one extra in
old
Jesse
school
Coyle.
4 up.
Yeah. That was a big ride by Jesse Coyle.
He didn't sit on for too long before he rolled through at the front. There's Jesse at the front now in the white and purple colours of Nero Continental.
Yeah, well, they didn't give him too much, but he was happy to oblige and just keep rolling through. They're flying along.
Yeah.
I'm presuming they're going to be well ahead of schedule. I look at the book. At a 42 kilometre-hour average speed, we're looking at a 1 p.m. stage finish. So we'll keep an eye on that. It's
68 kilometres to go. It's 10 past 11.
Yeah, I'd say they're going to be under that.
They'll be ahead of schedule.
Yeah,
I think they'll be about 10 minutes ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
Well, the race is not going to get any slower in the last 60 k's.
No. Well, we know the last
20.
We know the last 40 will be as quick as this, and the last 20 will be quicker.
Yeah.
So unless they put the brakes on now.
We're about to make a left-hand turn in just a couple of moments.
Yeah.
Those pink signs always catch your attention when you're in the peloton. You'd look to the trees to see for any indication about wind direction, and there is hardly a breath of wind at the finish line in Shepparton.
No,
that's
not.
rare.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's now there's not much at all. So now they make the left. So this is the circuit now that they do. They do a clockwise, I should say, clockwise circuit. It's almost starts at an arrow. Where they've made the left turn is like an arrow point.
So they're on the Rushworth to Tura Road.
Exactly. They go around the Waranga Basin, just sort of lap around the edge of it, and then they'll make a right-hand turn on the McEwen Road, and then another right-hand turn, a left turn and a right turn, and that will bring them back to where they've just come from. So if there is any wind at all, maybe Pat Shaw's wishing it to happen.
This is back in the peloton. This is Michael Potter. Behind him, I'm anticipating Michael Freeberg. I'm sure Michael Potter will have the job of delivering Michael Freeberg up to the front. It is the big figure of Michael Freeberg. So the ARA team, managed by Henk Vogels, Henk will be chomping at the bit with the opportunity to race against 4 World Tour teams and show everybody that we're equal to these guys. Let's race.
And if there is any hint of crosswind, and that's why Henk is so attentive. He was, back in his racing days, he was one of the best in the crosswinds at any level. At the highest level,
he caused trouble.
He caused trouble, yeah.
In a good way.
Yes.
For his team.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why he's got that team right near the front here. And you could just for a moment then, you could just see that peloton push down towards the right of the road, the right of the screen. But again, then they just push up. So I just don't think there's enough, or the direction of it as well. It's just not the right direction, the road at the moment, to cause any real grief.
66.8 kilometres to go, stage 1 of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour from Nagambie to Shepparton. Let's take a look at what has happened in the race so far. It got underway at Mitchelton Winery, and you can see that famous tower in the background. That's part of the logo for Mitchelton Winery, the logo that you see on the jersey of one of the best teams in the world, Mitchelton Scott. Slight delay in the flag coming in because of a front wheel puncher for Michael Storer of Sunweb, but there was no delay in the first attack to go. Carter Turnbull and David Williams were on the move from the Quarter Mentha team, and they were pretty quickly joined by 3 others. Then at the first of the intermediate sprints, it was Roy Efting collecting maximum points ahead of Nicholas White, followed then by Craig Wiggins. Shortly after that, there were a few more attacks, and a breakaway group of 5 has now formed off the fronts. The last man to get across was Jesse Coyle from the Nero Continental team. There was a fall back in the peloton. Amongst those who falled, there was the Canadian from the Israel Startup Nation team, Ben Perry, and then 3 riders from the Bridge Lane team, including Nicholas White, who finished in 2nd position in the first of the intermediate sprints. In terms of the breakaway group, Conor Murdoch in the green colours, the blue colours, that is Ben Hill from Team Bridge Lane. For ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast, it's Ryan Thomas, number 93. 121, that is Jesse Coyle, and in the yellow colours is Charles Etienne Creighton. The maximum advantage for this group, David Mckenzie, it was out to 3 minutes and 30 seconds. The peloton, they're slowly reeling them back in. Their advantage is back down to 2 minutes and 32 seconds.
Yes, it is, and there's the graphic. So it's just, it really hasn't moved the last 10 kilometres. You almost think there's a fault with the clock. But they're really just riding at the same tempo now as the breakaway. And as we said, they're probably doing about 45 kilometres per hour this break. So they're moving along. None of them have missed a turn here. Just as I say that, Murtagh here, just having a chat with Ben Hill from Team Bridge Lane.
Well, neither of them are known for shirking their work.
No.
They're both riders who contribute significantly to breakaways.
Yeah, so they're all working well together. And
a conversation about a status update and trying to maintain the morale of this breakaway group. That's Jesse Coyle who's at the front.
Yeah, you talk about those two, and then of course Jesse Coyle. So you've got 3 riders really keen and always keen to do their work at the front. The other 2 are going to oblige, you'd imagine. So that's why they are sort of putting the pressure on this peloton. And Murtagh now having a chat with the rider at the back there, number 117, Charles Etienne Creighton from the Ovolo team.
Well, they're working well together. Their advantage is 2 minutes and 41 seconds inside the last 65 kilometres. After the men's race, we'll have the first stage of the women's race, the Lexus of Blackburn Herald Sun Tour, where we have Lucy Kennedy lining up as the defending champion. Can she win back-to-back?
It's exciting to be coming back to the Herald Sun Tour this year. I believe it's the first race that I've come to as defending champion, and being able to pin number 1 on my jersey is pretty cool. We've been here at Mitchelton Wines for the last couple of days since the Cadell Evans race. Absolutely enjoying it. It's the first time I've had the pleasure of staying here. So we've been enjoying these beautiful surroundings and eating some lovely local food and just generally relaxing. The accommodation here at Mitchelton Wines has been outstanding. For a race hotel, just a step above everything. Beautiful, comfortable rooms and nice pool and just lovely grounds around it. Every other race hotel's got a lot to live up to. We rode through Nagambie this morning. It was the first time I'd actually ridden through Nagambie. It's a really lovely little town actually there on the lake. We sat and had a coffee by the lake. But between training and racing, I like to eat a lot. I'm a bit of a foodie, so I enjoy eating good food and drinking coffee, spending time with friends, and just generally trying to not think about cycling too much, actually, get away from it a little bit.
And this is effectively where Lucy Kennedy and the Mitchelton Scott team have been saying. This is Nagambie. The Mitchelton Winery is part of Nagambie. It's got the brewery, the distillery. There's also a caravan park, which is right by the lakeside, and it's the home of Black Caviar. It's the home of plenty of other racehorses as well. A beautiful destination for a family holiday. The weather is generally pretty good. Very warm throughout the summer months, consistent throughout the winter months. Nice walk around the lake. Perhaps if you're feeling a little bit more energetic, you could go for a jog. The peloton, though, they're racing away from Nagambie. They're heading towards Shepparton. This is stage 1 of the 67th edition of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour. 5 riders off the front, holding onto an advantage of 2 minutes and 34 seconds. They're heading out towards Rushworth before they make the turn and coming back in towards Mooroopna and then on to Shepparton. We spoke earlier about the Mooroopna roller derby, David Mckenzie. I've just been sent a message by Lee DeLuca about his memories of the Mooroopna roller derby and his dad holding him up on the bike. His dad did teach him plenty, and his dad was one of the good guys of the sport.
Yes, absolutely. One of many characters in the sport of cycling in Victoria and for that matter Australia. So I think we all have great memories growing up as kids racing the carnivals, and so much fun. I think as a teenager, and cycling being a sport where you have to travel a lot, and you'd either, if your own parents couldn't take you, you'd couple in with another family, and there'd be 4 bikes on the roof, there'd be 2 in the back, you'd be in the back seat, you'd have spare wheels next to you, and I think we all in some shape or form have these memories. But it was so much fun, and travelling around the state over the Christmas period, doing some really good racing, and getting to know kids from right across the country. And for our international viewers, our country's big. You know, we're the size of Europe, we're the size of United States of America. We're a pretty big country, so
that was the beauty of it. From the sports that I played prior to cycling, with tennis and football and basketball and little athletics, it was within your suburbs, it was your neighbourhood. And then cycling from a very young age, it broadened your horizon really quickly. And you had exposure to kids from all across the country, from metropolitan towns to country towns and so on. So it gave you a greater appreciation of different lifestyles within our own country. And it gave you a thirst for exploring the world more broadly.
Yes, I mean, as you probably remember, when I first started travelling to interstate races, I felt like, out of Victoria, anything out of Victoria, it almost felt like another country.
It was when you were 15 years of age.
Yeah, and you'd turn up to an interstate race, and it would feel like you're suddenly at an international event. You didn't know anyone on the start line. There was maybe 1 or 2 Victorians, but it was such a great way to learn. To deal with the pressures and new environments, and then obviously you think about the next step.
Fantastic way to grow up. This is our breakaway group. Ryan Thomas at the front has not missed a beat. Ben Hill next in line. This is Jesse Coyle. Then Charles Etienne Creighton. And at the back of the group in the green colours, Conor Murdoch, who looks like he's really enjoying himself. Get the chance to see him quite regularly as he heads out for his training rides, going through the northern suburbs of Melbourne. A lot of his training is up around the St Andrews, King Lake area.
They're certainly working well together, and if we pay attention to how often a rider is pulling his turn on the front, it means that effectively the other 4, you've probably got about 2 minutes of recovery time. So it's actually a pretty good working group. That 2 minutes is enough for you to then hit the front, put a pretty not a maximum effort, but a threshold effort on the front, keep that tempo high, 45 kilometres an hour. And you can see now, we've seen number 93 drop back, and that's Ryan Thomas, who you just mentioned. Now we've got Ben Hill on the front, and I haven't got the clock on it, but at an estimate, he's at 30 seconds already now. So he's probably doing close to a minute.
Just a little while ago, we saw Ben Hill, the rider who's at the front, and the green colours, now about to have a bite to eat, Conor Murdoch. They were having a chat, and I wonder if their conversation was about the method in which they're working. Instead of through and off, longer turns at the front, longer recovery.
Yeah.
Because they've had a change.
Yes, it wouldn't surprise me at all. And just with, the science of cycling and the technology, they think about this more. Back in, eras gone past, you wouldn't think about that as much. You'd find the right sort of process, but now they would know, and their directors might have even said, listen, if you can pull longer turns, guys, he's done at least a minute, I would say. Yeah. I would say he's done probably about a minute, actually. So if each rider's doing a minute, that is giving
4 minutes rest.
4 minutes rest. That's pretty good.
That's good
pretty
recovery,
good.
Isn't it?
Yep. And you can pull a threshold effort.
For 1 minute.
No problems for 1 minute. It's just shy of maximal.
Well, normally if you're coaching, in your coaching role, if you were getting an athlete to do 1 minute efforts, what would their normal recovery period be?
Well, it depends. I mean, it's the 40-20 theory, 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off, but that's 40 seconds absolute full gas, 20 seconds recovery. But 1 minute, I'd generally have a minute off, or maybe 2 minutes off.
Yeah, so they're getting, if you're going 1 on, 2 off, they're getting 1 on, 4 off. So they're getting double that recovery period.
Yep.
Sure, it's not as much rest as you would do in training in terms of the intensity dropping off, but it's 30% easier sitting in the slipstream than it is doing the turn of pace, as we now see the powerful Jesse Coyle at the front of the Breakaway group.
Well, they're just under 60 kilometres, so they've got about an hour 20 left to race.
In the last 10Ks, they've lost 6 seconds to the peloton.
Yeah, the peloton, they're going to have to ride. If they're doing 45, the peloton are going to have to do 55 eventually to bring them back. That's the difference.
Is there anybody from the Black Spoke Pro Cycling Academy, the Kiwi team, that we should be looking for in the sprint finish today?
There is. Probably the young rider, and he's the short guy at the rear. They're number 131, Luke Mudgeway. He's reasonably handy sprinter. And yeah, I'd look at them. Look, they've already had a couple of victories to start their team off. They got the first stage in the New Zealand Cycling Classic. They won that with Aaron Gate, of course. He's had a fantastic sort of last few months, of course, on the track. He's qualified for the Olympics. He won 2 World Cups. He's not here, but he's with that team when he does his road races, and he's a quality pick-up by the team. And I tell you what, he is a big prospect for a gold medal at the Olympics this year.
He is very, very good. Number 97, that is Sebastian Barrett, going back towards the team car, have a conversation with Henk Vogels and pick up some water and food for the rest of his teammates. Rejoin the Breakaway group of 5. This is the 67th edition of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour, and Dave Mckenzie, this is the first time we've had live coverage of every single stage. Having a conversation with the sports director of Mitchelton Scott, Matt Wilson, a former winner of this race back in 2007. The conversation was based around, a lot of people always say it's not like it used to be back in our day, and making the claims that it was better. Matt Wilson, who it was back in his day, he says it's way better than it was back in his day. The racing is harder, the coverage is better, and the quality of the support around the race has improved significantly. And he's in a position to talk because he won it in 2007, and he thinks it's harder now and the racing is better.
He's right. He's 100% right. And look, if you go back about 20 years, it was an 11-day stage race. It was about... It was about, I think I remember one year there was 20 stages.
There was not.
I'm not joking. There was almost 2 every day. There was always a criterium and then a road stage. And they quickly, that was a changeover period where they said, okay, this is too much. And then obviously more Europeans would come out and say, come on, we can't do this. What's this business? But that was the Australian way of racing, wasn't it? A lot of the smaller tours, domestic tours, it was always 2, sometimes 3 stages.
Well, I was going to say, Marcel Wust always had 3 stages then. He'd have a road race in the morning, a criterium in the afternoon, and then his night stage would be just as big.
Yeah.
It was Marcel Wust, the great German sprinter. He really enjoyed himself.
He spent plenty of times here, but I mean, back in that era, some of the names they got were incredible. I remember as a teenager, in fact, growing up here in Shepparton, Jean-Paul Van Poppel.
Yeah, and I'm going to pick your second favourite, another Dutchman, and his son just won the cyclocross world title once again.
Of course, Adrie van der Poel.
Who won the race in 1988.
Yeah. I mean, that was, as a teenage kid growing up in country Australia, the Sun Tour, as it was known back then, would come through town. There'd be Adrie van der Poel in his prime.
Yeah.
There would be Jean-Paul Van Poppel. The year Van Poppel
won the green jersey.
And 4 stages of the Tour de France. I mean,
not bad.
We were sort of like, how is it possible? So it's got this incredible history of bringing out the best riders in the world at the time. And even still in recent years, Chris Froome.
Bradley Wiggins.
It's amazing.
Back of the peloton, you can see plenty of the riders in the black and pink colours. That St George Continental. Also amongst it is our man Pat Shaw with an injury update. Pat, what can you tell us?
Yes, well, on the right-hand side of Nick White, unfortunately, he's taken a fair bit of skin off on his hip. He's been to the race doctor. He's going to continue in the race. He's in quite a lot of discomfort at the moment, which is quite unfortunate because he was a big chance in today's stage. We'll see how that's going to affect him as the day goes on. But he certainly is quite content he has a rider in the breakaway.
We're just having another look at the crash. Their head-on shot doesn't really do it justice in terms of the damage, but it looks like it was pretty quick through that corner. Do you think this excludes Nick White as a potential winner of today's stage?
Well, I think it may do so indeed. It really depends. We've seen riders in the past, they have a crash and it almost gives them that fuel to really push the line. But it's quite hot out here now, Matt, and the wind's starting to come from the side. So potentially this could be a tough day for Nick White now.
For Team Bridge Lane, Nick White would have been their protected rider for the sprint finish. What's plan B?
Well, the protected rider would have been Nick White. You are 100% correct. But certainly plan B would be Ben Hill to push on in the late kilometres of this stage. They're well aware now they're actually servicing Ben Hill as we speak. They're well aware now that the peloton's not going to give them much rain at all. About that 2.5 minute mark is where the breakaway is ticking. But I can see a huge surge of pace coming from this breakaway in the final 25 kilometres.
I can tell you what, Pat, the breakaway, incidentally, they're doing a pretty good job out there, aren't they?
They're incredibly well-oiled machine out here, Dave. No one has missed a beat. They seem to be talking quite a lot, and even in the feeding, they're happy to share around a few bars and gels. So they're definitely in. We often talk about in these races how a group becomes teammates, essentially, and that's what they have done now. They've formed a good pack. They're all rolling through quite well, and there doesn't seem to be anyone really surging the pace. So I think the communication in this group will have been that we've got 2.5 minutes. They're not going to give us much more. Let's stay around there in the last hour of racing. Let's really have the fuel in the tank to surge to the line.
Thanks, Pat. Keep the updates coming.
Yeah, I'm loving the updates. They're great, aren't they?
The updates on the line when we get to talk to him, and the text messages coming through from Pat Shaw. We're on a sure thing.
Yep.
Breakaway group of 5, 2 minutes and 26 seconds. They haven't conceded anything in the last few Ks.
And the key point from Pat then at the end, and if they've got anything left in the tank, if they get to the last hour, they get to 40 kilometres to go, and they commit, and they say, okay, boys, if they rally the troops, and Ben Hill is probably one of those to do that, so too Jesse Coyle, motivate the rest of the break and say, listen, if we can all lift right to our limit, we just might have a chance here.
Well, that's the attitude that they have to have.
Yeah.
There's no point being in the breakaway otherwise.
No.
And none of the riders in this group has any chance of winning the stage or had any chance of winning the stage if they had have sat back in the peloton. So they've made the right call. They've shown the right attitude. All the chips are on the table.
Yeah. No, it's good. Look, it's
I like it.
And we saw from the start that initial break went. Peloton wasn't happy with the composition, so they've brought it back together. And so it took a little while for it to get away, and now that it has, and it's a quality group, and Jesse Coyle again, I mean, when he jumped out of that peloton, our cameras missed it, but we already know that they were at 1 minute when he jumped. So he's crossed the 1 minute margin, and then in the process as he's got there, it's about 1:45, so that was a big effort.
They're playing the standoff with the peloton at this point. The peloton's not really chasing, and they're not really trying to ride away so much. They're just at that position where they'll wait for the peloton to go, okay, let's close, and then they go. But who blinks first?
I hope so. I hope that's what they're doing.
I'm
I hope
convinced
because I want to see a real battle here.
But look at the change in the body language. They're no longer on the drops of the bars. They're sitting on the brake levers.
Yep.
They're doing those longer turns at the front. They've backed off the pace ever so slightly. They've tempted the peloton to do the same. And in around about 13 Ks, the breakaway, they need to go, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
This is
That'll be intriguing.
Alexander Cataford at the back for Israel Startup Nation. Mikael Ram, the Estonian, will be the sprinter for that team. They've had one rider involved in the crash. That was Ben Perry. 4 Canadians on the Israel team.
Yeah. We've had a bunch of Canadians out racing throughout January, throughout this summer of cycling. It's been good. We've had riders from right across the world. The Israeli rider as well, Goldstein. He was the only Israeli in the Tour Down Under, in fact.
There's a hand up as well there, courtesy of the Quarter Mentha Australian team, and that was Mark O'Brien, who's going back to his team director, one of his close friends, Pat Lane, who recently got married. And this is not his honeymoon. That comes later.
I was going to say, I hope not. We all love working on a bike race, but yeah. Well, they're riding well together. Remember, they're on this circuit loop now, past the Waranga Basin. Big water supply for the region. Not sure how much water is in it these days. It's been pretty dry up around this area for quite a number of years.
Some good rain recently.
Yes,
just in the last couple of weeks, which has been great.
A couple of big dumps.
And particularly important in the high country and out in East Gippsland after the bushfires have had a significant impact on some of those areas. But the great news for us is that we're going into the high country tomorrow. The stage finishes at the top of Falls Creek. It's open for us to visit, and I can't wait to do a slow ride with you tomorrow, David. Mckenzie, repeat after me. A slow ride.
Listen.
A slow ride.
There's no friends when we hit the bottom, okay?
Repeat after me. A slow ride.
Fun and games. Our competitiveness doesn't die.
Well, yours doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't mean we're going any quicker. In fact, we're going a lot slower. You're the only guy, and I'm not convinced I'll actually beat you up, by the way.
Because I'll have a good hold of the back of your saddle. Number 41, Mark O'Brien. He's a guy that almost good enough to make it, and perhaps wrong place, wrong time on a few occasions. Things just didn't fall his way.
Yeah,
he's got the engine to have been good enough to be a World Tour rider.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, look, it's sliding doors. I always say it can be, and I think you wear it on the chin, however way your career goes, and I'm sure Mark is the same. What's nice is that he's still heavily involved. Obviously, he's racing, but like I said, he sort of quasi-retired about 3 years ago, but he just couldn't. And I kept seeing him on Strava punching out these mega kilometres, but not racing much. And then he'd ride one race of the year, which was the National Road Title in the last couple of years. Finished top 10, and it's like, man, get back to Europe. But he couldn't find a team, and he's beyond that sort of young rider age category. So he sort of missed the mark, as you said, just by a little bit. But still a quality rider, and it's great to have him on the domestic scene still.
Down to 51 kilometres remaining. The Breakaway group of 5, their advantage is 2 minutes and 17 seconds.
The high country is now really renowned as the destination for cycling. Having grown up in the area, did you always have that threat of fire and were well aware of it?
This summer we've had horrific bushfires, and having people come back, and it'll be good to see the trails getting filled up and the roads getting filled up with cyclists again.
You and I have had fortune ride all over the world, and this matches anything I've done.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, we were so spoilt with the vineyards, the mountain views, it's just magic.
So the ride that we've done today, that's a road ride that I know pretty well, but you're famous for being a world champion on the mountain bike. You've got to take me off-road.
Yes, we've got Mystic Mountain Bike Park here and then 6 other amazing locations.
This is one of my favourite destinations. I'm coming back in Easter. Hopefully lots of other people come back as well and support the locals.
Cheers, mate.
The high country, Falls Creek. This is Shepparton, the destination for the conclusion of stage 1, the former hometown of David Mckenzie. You grew up here, David. It must be great to come back and see Shepparton thriving.
Let me give you a tour, Matt. The Motor Museum, of course. Look, it's a town that is thriving, and it's grown even since I've moved away from this town, but still so much to offer. The Goulburn River flows through the town. You know, as a young teenager, that was where you spent your summer months. They had the biggest pool in the southern hemisphere at a period as well. In the end, they cut it in half and turned it into 2. But plenty on offer in this great town of Shepparton.
It's one of the best public pools I've ever been in.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, absolutely.
Back at the peloton, number 73, that's Ryan Kavanagh. 72 is Sebastian Berwick. Kavanagh tried to get into that first breakaway, spent all his biggies, couldn't quite get there. Then the breakaway got caught anyway. I felt for him.
And you know what was nice from our point of view as commentators and spectators, when you can watch the start of a stage and see what unfolds, and the viewer, the spectator, gets to see how hard it is to make that initial breakaway.
Yeah, it is always really difficult, particularly in a flattish stage. It's 121 kilometres. Matthew Keenan with you, joined by David Mckenzie. David, you finished on the podium in this race. You won multiple stages. How important was it to you throughout your career?
Oh, massive. Look, it was back then it was in October, in the month of October, so it was at the end of the season. So it was a good motivator. You'd sort of come back bruised and battered from your European season, but you'd pick yourself back up because it was the Sun Tour. And it was the oldest, it is the oldest stage race in the country. So, look, it was so important, and probably more so in my younger years developing as a rider. That was the pinnacle in our country. And, you know, I remember I rode the first one when it was professionals and amateurs combined, or that's what they called us back then. And so it was almost incredible that us as amateurs could ride the Herald Sun Tour. And so for any young rider now, I think not much has changed. For young riders that get to step up into the Sun Tour for the very first time, it's the pinnacle for them. And now what we're seeing, there's 4 World Tour teams in the race. So they really get to race against some of the biggest and best teams in the world, the likes of Simon Yates. There'd be young riders riding alongside Simon Yates in the peloton, taking a little sneaky look across, thinking, you know, I'll pinch myself here. There's the Vuelta a España winner, Cameron Meyer, you know, guys like Mitch Docker, Nielsen Powless as well. So, you know, it's really good breeding ground for the young riders, and it develops them in an environment that's not too overwhelming.
And it's an opportunity, as you say, for the guys in the breakaway to say, hey, look at me. Perhaps a World Tour team might be interested in Charles Etienne Creighton in that breakaway, the rider in the yellow colours, given he's just 20 years of age, one of the youngest in the race, and he's having an impact. Jesse Coyle at the back of the group. He was the last rider to get across to this group. Inside the last 48 kilometres, their advantage now is down to 2 minutes and 14 seconds. They know that their odds of surviving are slim, super slim, but they're putting everything into it, and this is crunch time for the breakaway. They need to bend their back.
It is, and now we'll keep an eye on this, the conditions here, because they've just made the right-hand turn. They've gone past the Waranga Basin. They've made the right-hand turn onto McEwen Road. So they're on the back of this sort of circuit that they do. So the conditions will completely change, and then in another sort of a few more kilometres, about 7 kilometres in fact, exactly, they'll make another right-hand turn, and they'll be effectively going in the opposite direction. So they'll be making the run home towards Shepparton, so they can, whatever the wind is then, it won't change too much on the way in. If they've got a tailwind, I tell you what, I give them half a chance. On a tailwind, if they can start whipping the speeds up to around 50 kilometres an hour, the peloton will have to chase super hard to bring them back.
I like your optimism. I'm going to be the pessimist.
I'm always optimist. You know that.
I don't give them any chance. And that is why Sunweb, Israel Startup Nation, EF Education First, Mitchelton Scott, 4 of the biggest teams in the world on the front chasing for sprinters who want to make the most of this opportunity, because they're rare in this race. There's 2 big mountaintop finishes.
They're rare this year, aren't they? That's for sure. It's been a while since we've had 2 proper summit finishes, and summit finishes that would stack up anywhere in world cycling. We know that, Mount Buller and Falls Creek. So you're right, Matt. A flat start today. The sprinters want to take control, and the World Tour teams, they don't take any risks anymore. You know, they've learnt over the years, you don't let a rider from one of these smaller teams get a 5-minute advantage. Suddenly there's a climber amongst this group who can, you know, okay, maybe not climb with the best, but he might only lose 2 minutes on 2 of the mountains. So they won't take any gamble at all. 2 minutes and 15 seconds. So they've sort of reduced it about 30 seconds. I mean, they haven't tried to reduce it per se at the moment. I think they will now with 45 kilometres to go. I think we can safely say there's an hour left to race.
Yeah, I think they will be averaging 45 k's per hour in this last hour as they make the right-hand turn for the peloton, heading back towards Mooroopna and then on into Shepparton. Let's take a look at the course, not just for today, but for the entire Jayco Herald Sun Tour. Today is the opening stage, 121 kilometres from Nagambie to Shepparton. It is a sprinter's paradise. Tomorrow, stage 2 is a tough one. It starts in Beechworth. It makes its way to the top of Falls Creek. It's then from Bright over to Wonga Gap and through to the finish line in Wangaratta. A mountainous start, but a chance for the sprinters in the end. Stage 4 is the second of the mountaintop finishes. It starts in the old hometown of Simon Gerrans in Mansfield, and it goes to Mount Buller before the 5th stage. It finishes with a circuit race in Melbourne around the Botanic Gardens. Let's take a closer look at stage 1. Starting at the Mitchelton Winery, neutral for the first couple of kilometres before the flag drops, 121.9 kilometres. No climbs, no prizes for the King of the Mountains classification. 2 intermediate sprints along the way. The first one has already been contested as they head out through Rushworth and then make the turn back towards home. This is the portion of the course that they're racing across at the moment. Not far away from the last of the intermediate sprints, and then it is back into Shepparton. A right-hand turn inside the last kilometre before they see the finish line. Don't be fooled by the elevation. It starts fairly low. There's no major climbs on this course to speak of. It is a day for the sprinters.
It certainly is. 150 metres maximum that they climb, if that, today. So here they are. 5 litres. They've rotated well. They've been a well-oiled machine, but how longer can they keep this up, and can they lift? That is the real question. Are they able to rise to the challenge at the peloton when the pelotons start to up the tempo? There's Jesse Coyle. He was the last one to get across to that breakaway group, and they couldn't wait. But it was a big effort. He did well to get there.
Look at the change in the position on the bike for a lot of the riders now. You see Jesse Coyle's in the drops on the handlebars. The others, even the ones that are on the brake hoods, their elbows are a lot more bent and they're crouched looking for aerodynamics. This is Ben Hill, number 65.
Yeah, Ben Hill's on the drops. And look, like I said, you got Murdoch, Hill and Coyle. They will try and motivate the other 2 riders to just keep on pushing, because those 3, they're opportunists. They look for the breaks and they're happy to do the workload, and that's why they're out here. So they will put up a fight, no doubt about it. They've got the second of the intermediate sprints. Of course, it's the Bright Brewery green jersey. That comes at after 102.6 kilometres to Tura, and that's sort of, well, it's not the last town they go through, smaller town before Shepparton. Mooroopna was just on the outskirts, about 5 kilometres from the finish. And it's a big wide open road coming in from Mooroopna, by the way. And then they'll make a right-hand turn into the finishing straight. So there's plenty to be played for. And in fact, that last right-hand turn, it's only 400 metres from the finish. It's a classic Jayco Herald Sun Tour finish. Plenty of straight roads, and then right at the end, a sharp right-hand turn. Pretty wide open road as well, the finishing straight. So plenty of room to manoeuvre, but you don't want to be out of position in that last corner.
There are plenty of riders that like that last corner. It gives them something to chase and fight for that position.
I tell you what, just on this break, and you're right on the money there, Matt. They have, as we say, they've pinned the ears back. Well, Murdoch has at least, and you can just see his body language there on the front. He's in the green colours. Just pulling a big turn there, flicks the elbow. And I think it was Jesse Coyle then taking over. So they're moving. And this camera angle now at the back, you can just see the speed that they're doing here. And the second Murdoch relaxes, he's off the wheel. He's allowed to just take a very sly little sling of the car there. Not much though. He'll offload his water bottle. Won't throw that. Look after the environment. He'll grab a fresh one, a cold one. Slightly sticky bottle. That's all well within the rules. Now he gets back up, but they are moving along. I think the next 10 kilometres, we'll watch that. This time gap, 2:17. Hasn't really dipped up, just dropped one.
Not enough cricket as a kid.
Nah.
And now the team car comes back to deliver another water bottle for Conor Murdoch. A little apology from the sports director in the process.
It's not as easy as it looks.
No, but there are designated feeding zones and also litter zones in this race, as there are all UCI sanctioned races. So you do get penalised for dropping litter outside of that zone, but I'm sure that the race officials will look upon that and see that that was actually a genuine accident. He wanted that water bottle.
Yeah.
He did not want to drop it.
Yeah.
This is Israel Startup Nation on the front, up in the tempo. The pink colours, Lockie Morton from EF for Education First. It's Omar Goldstein, the rider from Israel Startup Nation. And then Sam Bewley, the unmistakable figure of the big Kiwi, coming towards the front in the black and yellow colours.
Yeah, Lockie Morton, I tell you what, he's one rider that I'd love to have his current pro contract. He, of course, rides for the EF team. But the last 12 months, he effectively did this, what they called the alternative calendar. He did 4 races that are not on the UCI calendar. One was effectively a race across Britain, or a race from south to north of Britain, of the UK, the most southern tip to the most northern tip. 2,000 kilometres, 4 stages.
Sounds like the original Tour de France.
Yeah, yeah, it was incredible. And I've seen some of the documentaries that they created. Another one was a cyclocross event, I think sort of up in the northern Yorkshire area. And effectively, there were hours of that, was a one-day race, but there were hours of that where he was running with his bike. He said hours. I've watched the documentaries of all of these 4 events. Absolutely phenomenal.
Right-hand turn, how narrow's the road? Not too bad. There's a reasonable amount of space, but each of these corners will catch the attention of the peloton as they make sure they've got their team leaders, their protected favourites for the overall classification, and potentially today's stage victory up the front out of trouble at those crunch moments.
Yeah, so now, well, they're at the furthest point on that circuit, or they're not anymore. They've just left that point. They turn onto Harston Road with 40 kilometres to go. Now, if they've got wind in the face, this will be to the detriment of the break. A tailwind, absolutely to their advantage. It means they can truck along at some 50 kilometres an hour, which means the peloton have to do at least 55 to bring them back. So, if anything, it doesn't look any quicker, does it?
Now, Ryan Thomas at the back of the group here, number 93. His team, ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast, they have Michael Freeberg on that team, winner of the national road title last year. But the guy they'll be working for today is Michael Rice, formerly of the Axion team managed by Axel Merckx. He's a reasonably good sprinter. He can certainly be a top 5 finisher on the stage today. So we'll look for him at the back end of the day.
And just look at this break, Matt. Not much, but they're just fanned. They're just fanned down the left a bit, and that's only 5 riders.
This is going to be enough. This will be enough to cause problems in the peloton.
Yep.
There'll be a real battle in the peloton for that right-hand turn.
Yeah.
And it's on.
Yeah.
You can see the tempo is starting to pick up. There's a bit more urgency coming from behind. And you look to the left-hand side of the screen, there's a few riders aware of the right-hand turn that they're approaching, and they're desperate to improve their position. Omar Goldstein at the front in the white and blue colours for Israel Startup Nation. The only Israeli rider on that team, and he's not on the team just because he's from Israel. He has earned his spot on the team. They're about to make the right-hand turn. The teammates of Ryan Thomas, you can see those yellow bikes to the left-hand side of the screen from ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast. They're making sure they're up towards the fronts. Here's the right-hand turn. Let's see what sort of damage this wind can potentially do. No big move at the front of the peloton from Israel Startup Nation. Not yet anyway. Conor Murdoch in the green colours about to roll through. They're still sharing the pace-making evenly with those long turns at the front to give good recuperation when they sit the wheel.
Yes, and well, it does sort of tell a story though, doesn't it, that it is a slight head cross just based on the way they're slightly down the right to left of the road there. But they're still riding at a pretty good tempo. Let's see how long Murtagh sits on the front here. Jesse Coyle, he looks like he's cruising along. So not long, shorter turns now. They've changed because of that headwind.
I think it's because of the strengthening of the wind, the change in direction. And the peloton, you can feel the tension. Pink colours at the front for EF Education first. It's then Mitchelton Scott, followed by Sunweb, then Israel Startup Nation. The 4 big teams have got themselves at the front.
They have, and they've had control for a while, and this is where, as I said at the start of the day, once that break got established and once the World Tour teams got themselves on the front, took control, don't get complacent. Fine. Just keep out of their way. You can't sort of get in the middle of their chase, but sit sort of in the box seat. Sit right behind them. Keep yourself in position, and you have to be switched on because at any moment the race can blow apart. And it's not happening, but you just got to be careful.
No, but it's definitely increasing the wind. You can see by the way this breakaway group is fanning from right to left, and crosswind is the dangerous wind when you're racing, the fun wind when you're commentating.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can tell by the speed. I know the camera angles makes the speed look different, but you can see here quite significantly that speed is, the sail has come out of their wings here, these 5 riders. So they're still, although they're still riding good tempo, this is going to hamper their chances here.
You look at the body language at the front of number 65, that's Ben Hill.
They're digging deep though, Matt. They're
really
2:13 still, 37 kilometres to go. We're talking 45, 50 minutes of racing. It's not a bad gap.
They'll get caught.
They'll get caught, but I'll tell you what, it'll take the peloton the rest of this 30-odd kilometres to get them.
But there's no white flag.
Yeah.
And we've seen it before. We saw it in the women's race to race Torquay, towards Zero Race Torquay, just last Thursday, when it looked on paper, surely this will be a day for the sprinters. Brodie Chapman got herself into the breakaway. She was joined by 3 others, and they held off the peloton. Every now and then, the breakaway survives. What instruction could be provided?
Oh, just keep on going.
Just encouragement?
Empty the tank. Yeah, encouragement. You've just got to keep them motivated at this point. You know, a couple of these guys are probably starting to suffer. A can of Coke.
The Black Doctor.
There you go. There's a bit of encouragement. Yep. Get the sugar hit.
Vehicles courtesy of Lexus of Blackburn, who have been great supporters of the summer cycling with the Bay Cycling Classic, also the Jayco Herald Sun Tour, plus the Cadell Evans Great Ocean Road Race. Mitchelton Scott have all of their riders at the front. Last in line is Simon Yates, who wears number 1, winner of the Volta a España back in 2018. Jesse Coyle at the front, number 121, and Christian Etienne Creighton offering the Coke around to the breakaway.
Yeah.
It is the game of Survivor. Let's form an alliance. Worry about voting off the island later on.
Yeah, as Pat Shaw said it earlier, you know, forget what jersey you've got on at the moment for these 5. They effectively become teammates on the road. And what we've seen, not one rider here has missed a beat for that whole break. It's actually been quite impressive. Not one has sort of missed a turn. That might change in the next 10, 15 kilometres, but at the moment, they're holding strong.
It won't be through lack of desire, and it won't be through a need to play tactical games. It will be simply through fatigue. They've all been fully committed to this breakaway. Their maximum advantage was 3 minutes and 30 seconds. 35 kilometres remaining on stage 1 of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour. Our leading group of 5, their advantage now down to 2:15. As now it's Ryan Thomas's turn to share the Coke around. It goes across to Jesse Coyle. They've all had a go.
Yeah.
Sharing is caring.
Well, they'll make a left-hand turn in the next couple of kilometres, and then they're going to go in an L-shaped direction from where they are at the moment for 2 kilometres. Then they'll make another right-hand turn and go back in the same direction as this road, and then they'll do the same again just before the intermediate sprint. They'll do a left turn, a couple of kilometres, then turn right, and then they'll be making their way into that finishing road, Talamba Road, which brings them into Mooroopna, and then they're just on the outskirts of Shepparton here.
Inside the last 35 kilometres, our leading group of 5 still holding on to an advantage of 2 minutes and 16 seconds. Can they make it all the way to Shepparton?
The high country is now really renowned as the destination for cycling. Having grown up in the area, did you always have that threat of fire and were well aware of it?
This summer we've had horrific bushfires, and having people come back, and it'll be good to see the trails getting filled up and the roads getting filled up with cyclists again.
You and I have had fortune ride all over the world, and this matches anything I've done.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, we're so spoilt with the vineyards, the mountain views, it's just magic.
So the ride that we've done today, that's a road ride that I know pretty well, but you're famous for being a world champion on the mountain bike. You've got to take me off-road.
Yes, we've got Mystic Mountain Bike Park here and then 6 other amazing locations.
This is one of my favourite destinations. I'm coming back in Easter. Hopefully lots of other people come back as well and support the locals.
Cheers, mate.
From one stunning Victorian destination to another, from the high country across to Nagambie, where the first stage of this race got underway. It is the home of the Mitchelton Winery, so too the Nagambie Brewery and Distillery. It's got a wonderful caravan park right by the lake and the home of black caviar. Nice spot to take a paddle across the lake or a swim or even a run around the lake, and there are lots of people that come here for a photo with the statue of black caviar, one of the most famous racehorses in the world. It's also been renowned as hosting plenty of stage finishes in the Jayco Herald Sun Tour. Today, it's the stage start. This is the Breakaway group of 5 that we're back on board with. For those of you just joining us, stage 1, 121 kilometres from Nagambie through to Shepparton. This is the composition of the break. Number 93, that's Ryan Thomas. 107, that is Conor Murdoch of Oliver's Real Food Racing. Stretching his back, a little bit of yoga on the bike, is Jesse Coyle from Nero Continental. The yellow colours at the front of the group is the youngest rider in the Breakaway, the 20-year-old from the Avolo team, that is Charles Etienne Creighton. Also in the Breakaway is Ben Hill of Team Bridge Lane. At one point, David Mckenzie, their advantage was out to 3:30, 33 kilometres remaining. It's down to 2:11. It's not getting a huge haircut, this advantage. They are persisting.
They are. And look at the peloton here. They're not exactly single file here. So I would think they're obviously reasonably confident that they can bring them back, but they wouldn't want to leave it too much longer. I think within 20 kilometres they'll start to really eat into that margin. So they've made the left turn, the Breakaway. In another 2 kilometres they'll turn right once again. So I would think they've got a little bit of reprieve here. They've probably got more of a wind in the back, in fact, just for that couple of kilometres. So that will assist them somewhat. They'd be quite happy if they went that direction all the way to the finish line, but unfortunately they won't.
At the back of the peloton, number 96, that's Michael Rice. He's the sprinter for the ARA team. Alongside him was number 92, Michael Freeberg. He'll have the job of doing the lead out. This is Riley Fleming in the green colours of Oliver's Real Food Racing. Team's had a good day. They've been represented in both of the breakaways. The first move, it was Angus Lyons. Now it's Conor Murdoch. At what point does number 92, Michael Freeberg, drag Michael Rice to the front of the peloton?
Well, I don't think wait too much longer. Not just to stay out of trouble. You know, I never like seeing on flat roads like this. There's a couple of directional changes in these last 30 kilometres. You know, I think you're asking for trouble almost. And when it's bunched up like this as well, crash happens in front of you here. You've got nowhere to go. So you've just got to have your wits about you. You're not spending any more energy sitting towards the front, but you are lessening the risk of a mishap.
Pink colours to the right going past the peloton. That's Tom Scully. That's the train they should have caught a ride with.
Yeah.
Because Tom Scully, he will get some space going past this peloton because he's a World Tour rider. His nickname's the Scud. He creates space if he's not given space.
Yeah.
And his team's on the front controlling the chase. That was the wheel to get on to get an easier ride to the front.
So they've made the left turn. They're about 2 kilometres ahead of the peloton because the break have just made the right-hand turn. So that is effectively, it's about 1.6 kilometres in fact. So they're 1.6 kilometres in distance ahead of the peloton. And now a little bit of wind blowing there. You can see the numbers just flapping a little bit there. But, geez, they haven't. I'll tell you what, credit to this break. They have not missed a beat all day.
In the last 10 kilometres, they've lost about 10 seconds. I thought at this point the gap would be down to 1:30. They've not conceded any ground, but the chase is not on in earnest yet from the peloton.
No,
Let's
it's not
remember
full
that.
gas, is it? Yep. They will when they turn it up. And because remembering, the chasers of those 4 World Tour teams, at the moment, the guys that have been on the front all day chasing, they can get dropped and lose 5 minutes at the end. So they will completely empty the tank as much as this breakaway will as well. And they're fresher. They're fresher out there because they've been sort of tempering their chase and they've been riding really within themselves.
This is the back of the peloton. This is Michael Freeberg. He was just having a chat back to the team car. That's Henk Vogels, who's in the team car. Exchanged a few text messages with Henk throughout the race, and he said that Michael Rice is their man for the sprint today, and there he is, number 96. So Freeberg is making sure he sticks with their sprinter. So too is number 97, and that's Sebastian Barrett. I really do like this team and the way they've gone about it. It's been Matt Wilson and Ben Kirsten who have set the team up, and they're making sure that these guys have got more options than just cycling.
Yes.
They're providing them with education support, courtesy of Sunshine Coast University.
Yeah, no, they've got some experienced guys behind it. Stu Shaw as well.
He's helping with the coaching side of things. Henk Vogels is doing the sports directing.
Yeah.
A good combination between those two. Another right-hand turn, this time for the peloton, led through by Sam Bewley.
Two minutes, 2:09, less than 30 kilometres.
They'll finish ahead of schedule. They were scheduled to finish at 1 o'clock. It's
12:05.
1:05 now. What do you think?
12:05, yeah.
40 minutes of racing?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? So they're going to be 15 minutes ahead almost. Yeah.
And the start was delayed. It was a slow start because in the neutral zone, they had to wait for the return of Michael Storer due to a front wheel puncture.
Yeah, 2 or 3 kilometres, I would have thought, before they pulled the red flag in. They made up for lost time.
They're in a rush.
Yeah.
They're keen to get to Shepparton.
They want to enjoy all of the delights that this lovely town has. Maybe a dip in the Goulburn. It's literally, as the crow flies from the finish line, it's only about 500 metres from here. The river runs through the town.
And then once they get here, they've got a chance to have a shower, get changed, and then be ready for the start of the women's race at 2:15.
Yes, yeah, looking forward to that.
Number 61, that's Nick White. It's difficult to assess the damage from that angle, but he had a nasty fall early in the stage after finishing second in the first of the intermediate sprints. Incidentally, we're 10 kilometres away from the second of the intermediate sprints. That goes through to Tura.
So still not a big chase on yet. Peloton getting a, nice sit here. No one under pressure or stressed.
Team car still going forward. That's the car of ARA Sunshine Coast that's going forward. So they've been relying on the other teams plus neutral service to look after their rider, Ryan Thomas, in the breakaway. They're pretty keen to go up and have one last chat.
I think so. Now you can see the peloton just pushing down the left a little bit here. So the riders on the right-hand side of the peloton, not so much fighting for position, but getting less of a sit, that's for sure.
And David Mckenzie, number 92, Michael Freeberg, he has Michael Rice just behind him. Why are they still at the back of the peloton?
Look, Freeberg's got experience, we know that. He's obviously not stressed, and so, yeah, jury's out. It's not panic stations, but I still would prefer to see a bit closer up in that first half of the peloton. He's in the back half. He's almost on the back, so you can see the jerseys of the Black Spoke Pro Cycling Academy there. Just all nestled together. Ari Scott, one of the sort of more fancy climbers. A bunch of young guys there, but McCormick and James Oram both have got plenty of experience, and they'll look to lead that team. But as I said, Luke Mudgeway, a small nuggety New Zealander, number 131, we'll look for him in the sprint finish today.
We've spoken a fair bit about Nicholas White. His brother, Liam White, is also racing. He's in the green colours of Oliver's Real Food Racing. I thought I just spotted him towards the back of the peloton. He wears number 106. There's number 131. That's Luke Mudgeway, the Kiwi that you spoke of. He's also not stressed, sitting comfortably down the back, along with number 92, Michael Freeberg.
Yeah, well, you can see he's got his teammates around him, And
McCormack just in front of him.
Yeah. So they've obviously got a plan. But again, look, it's a bit more strung out now. It's not bunched up like it was just a few moments ago.
As a sports director, you'd be a lot more comfortable seeing your sprinter at the front as opposed to at the back.
You totally would, wouldn't you? Yeah, because the closer we get to the finish now, the speed will not drop. It's not going to go any slower. What we do know, and I can tell you from a local, the Mooroopna to Shepparton, that last sort of 5 odd kilometres, big wide open road, so plenty of room, and it's fairly sheltered, sort of bushland either side.
A reminder of our breakaway group of 5 at the back for Team Bridge Lane, number 65. That is Ben Hill. Just in front of him, 117 in the yellow colours. That's Charles Etienne Crichton. 107 for the Oliver's Real Food Racing team. That's Conor Murdoch. 121 at the front of the group, setting the tempo from Nero Continental is Jesse Coyle, and rounding out the contingent of 5 from ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast is Ryan Thomas. Coyle was the last rider to join this group. When he made his bid to get across from the peloton, the gap was already over 1 minute. It was a huge solo effort. The rest of the riders in the group, they gave him a little bit of latitude to sit on for all of 1,500 metres.
It wasn't much, was it?
Not much at all.
He didn't complain though.
No.
He rolled through, did his turn. Now he's looking for a bottle.
It's not hot, but it's not cool
it's
either.
Hot enough.
It is hot enough.
And I can tell you again from local knowledge, when you get out on these open roads, there's not much shelter at all out these sort of back roads here. There's plenty of trees here and there you can see on the side, but not much shade.
No.
So the sun just beats off the road. It feels sort of, at times it can feel up to 10 degrees warmer, hotter than what it actually is.
Down to 1 minute and 35 seconds. So in the last 4 kilometres, they've conceded more than 30 seconds. The peloton has moved into the next phase. It's time now for the breakaway to respond if they've got any petrol tickets left to spend. There's 131, Mudgeway, the Kiwi sprinter that you've spoken about.
Yeah, McCormack, his teammate right there. He's got plenty of experience. Alexander White, another young Kiwi. James Oram, he's had some success too on the Asian circuit.
Down to the last 25 kilometres. Pat Shaw, what do you make of the current situation of the race?
Well, as we expected, Matt, the break is everything they can, but the gap is coming down. The first signs of fatigue in the breakaway as well, with the riders starting to be a bit rock and rolling on the bike. It has been a lot tougher day out here than probably the pictures have shown. In the breakaway in particular, with just the 6 riders that have worked their hardest out in this breakaway, it seems that the fatigue now starting to set in, but now's the time they actually need to lift the pace. They're trying their best, but it's a cross headwind at this point, and that's making speed difficult to accomplish.
How strong is the wind?
Well, the trees don't seem to be moving much, but when we see the riders in the echelon as they draft one another while doing their turns of pace, they are moving a lot around the road, which says that it probably is a lot stronger on the road than what we suspect. We're just about to pass the 25 kilometres to go sign out the road. So now's the time, if they've got anything left, and also if they're to be caught, they've still got to work for this most aggressive jersey as well. So at the moment, these 5 riders would be pretty even in that classification. One of them would have to break away to win that award today.
And Ben Hill, he's got to be the short price favourite to do that, doesn't he?
Well, we know he's fairly antisocial, Ben Hill, doesn't mind a bit of time solo, but equally Conor Murdoch and certainly Jesse Coyle, none of those 3 riders have any problems with riding on their own, and they love to just go to the end. So although it looks like the gap coming down now, it's under a minute 30, these are going to be hard rides to bring back because they don't like sitting in the peloton at any time.
At the back of the peloton, incidentally, thanks, Pat, for the update. We're seeing images of number 61. This is Nicholas White. He had a nasty fall early in the stage after showing really good form early this season, David Mckenzie. He was second in the opening intermediate sprints. He was one of the contenders, perhaps, to cause an upset in the stage today. This is not good.
It's not good at all. That's it. I can't imagine he won't get back to that peloton. So he's seeing the race doctor. He's being attended now. And that looks like Andrew Garnham, who's had plenty of experience working in cycling. So he's in good hands. And he's obviously not in a great way. And when you hit the deck like that, our cameras picked it up, but only just. So We didn't get a really good view of it, but what it did look like was a really awkward crash. I don't think there's any crashes that aren't awkward.
Because it was, so all the damage is on his right hip,
yeah,
but it was a left-hand corner, so he's gone the high side.
Yes.
So there's a huge amount of impact when he does land on the ground.
Well, he's flipped potentially. He's rolled, and I mean the good news is
there's hardly any skin off the left. It looks like he has gone high side and really landed heavily on that right hip, which is bad.
And he hasn't broken anything, which is good at least.
Which is incredible.
Yeah, taking skin off, he'll be stiff and sore tonight, but he'll get some physio. They'll get the ice packs out and they'll try and speed up the recovery process. And
so look at that fall again.
Yeah.
So it's that left-hand turn.
You can see it there, and just in the background on the left of the screen.
There's no crash that doesn't hurt.
No.
It's just degrees of pain.
And sometimes you don't take much skin off, but you knock your body, and it's almost worse at times. You really bruise it up.
That is going to be really sore tomorrow.
He'll have a sore hip. Yeah.
This is his teammate at the back of the group, number 65 from Bridge Lane. This is Ben Hill. What an incredible team this has been. For the last 11 years running, they've won the team trophy, the John Craven Shield for the National Road Series, and they've delivered so many riders up to the World Tour level. And last year, they've managed to send another two up, and they've managed to get Dylan Sunderland up to the World Tour, riding with NTT, and Chris Harper has now joined the Jumbo-Visma team. But their most famous graduate, of course, is still Richie Port.
Yes, absolutely. 22.9 kilometres to go. It's quite amazing, Matt. We've been going for just over 2 hours. Incredible. A 121 kilometre stage. They've only been racing for 2 hours. They've got about half an hour to go. 35 minutes left to race.
1 minute is now the advantage for the leading group of 5 at 22.7 kilometres to go. Heading towards Marupna. First of all, they'll get through to Tura for the next of the intermediate sprints. They'll make it there. They're 3 kilometres away from the intermediate sprint. They won't make it inside the last 10 Ks, I don't think. Somebody from this group, after that intermediate sprint, I'm convinced, will attack to try and get the prize of the most combative on the day.
Yeah, it's the Quest Shepparton, so it's only fitting, isn't it? The red jersey, most aggressive classification, and it is at the sole discretion of the race director who decides that most aggressive.
This is Nick White at the back of the peloton. He's got Luke Mudgway, 131, just in front of him.
Well, that's a turn up. Wasn't expecting that. So, no, he's made it back.
The peloton has really backed off. The big 4 teams, the 4 World Tour teams, the top division of world cycling, they don't want to catch the breakaway yet.
Well, this is good for Nick White. I thought he was gone out the back. Well, he was. He was a few hundred metres. So he's managed to get his way back onto the rear of the peloton. So that's good signs for him at least.
54 seconds is all that remains of what was once a 3.5 minute advantage for this leading group of 5. Ryan Thomas at the back, number 93. He's doing up his shoes, number 65, Ben Hill. He's planning something, surely. Ben Hill is not the kind of guy that waits for things to happen.
There you go, the left one as well. Yeah, but as Pat Shaw pointed out, Jesse Coyle, Conor Murdoch, they'll have something to say about it as well. They're about 2 kilometres now from the, just under in fact, or just over I should say, from the second of the intermediate sprints. And that's the Bright Brewery intermediate sprint jersey, the green jersey. So I think they're certainly going to get that. And beyond that, well, it's just a matter of when will they be caught, you would think.
This is Conor Murdoch at the back of the group in the green colours of Oliver's Real Food Racing. You can see plenty of those Oliver's Real Food stores dotted along major highways now, and they're fuel stops along with petrol stations, so you no longer have to stop for junk food. You can get some real quality food courtesy of Oliver's Real Food.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
Mudgway still at the back, David, number 131.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I know you don't. That's why I drew your attention to it.
You don't have to. I'm seeing it. Yeah. Wow, look, Scott Guyton, I tell you what, he was a pretty calm and calculated rider in his racing days. And
how calm is he as a director?
Well, we'll see. I'll probably chat to him tonight, so I'll I'll have a debrief with him on the team and see how happy he is with their opening day. He'll be pretty calm though and relaxed.
Down to 45 seconds. 1 kilometre to the intermediate sprint. If their advantage was still at 2 minutes, I don't think it would be much of a sprint. But given that it's a doomed breakaway now, I think we're going to see a real contest for these points.
And if you're after whoever wants to win the most aggressive jersey, the Quest Shepparton most aggressive jersey, you'd almost let the sprint go and hit them from the back. Hit them from behind.
And Ben Hill is drifting to the back, and he's the rider, number 65, who we're anticipating to attack the breakaway.
Yeah.
Approaching Tatura for the second of the intermediate sprints in the race for the Bright Brewery points classification. About to make the left-hand turn. Conor Murdoch is at the front of the group. Charles Etienne Crichton is in second position. 500 metres to the sprint. Jesse Coyle's in a good position. Ryan Thomas in third spot. Ben Hill, number 65. Ben Hill's a reasonably quick sprinter. He's not one for the big bunch sprint finishes.
He looks like he's lining himself up for this.
From a group like this, though, he is quick.
Yep.
In the yellow colours, Charles Etienne Crichton. Is he positioning himself for the sprint? Ben Hill certainly is. As he opens up, it's Ryan Thomas who goes first. Ben Hill is trying to collect maximum points in the battle for the Bright Brewery points classification. It is Thomas versus Hill. This will be another tight one. It's Ben Hill who gets the points.
Yeah, Hill there quite comfortably in the end. Yeah, good bike length, wasn't it? So, objective achieved, and look.
Is he going? He's going.
He's going on with it. He's trying to at least. He'll try and take both.
I genuinely thought his tactic would be to sit out the sprint and then go, but he's doing both. That's how aggressive he is.
Yeah.
Let's take another look at this sprint. 200 metres to go. A little bit of a game of cat and mouse. And then it was Ryan Thomas who was the first to break ranks.
Yeah, he was. Hill was ready for it though. And you can just see him backing off, giving a length, almost treating it like a track sprint. Don't be hard up on the wheel. And it worked. He had sitting ducks for him in the end, and look at that comfortably. It was a length, 2 lengths in fact. So he got it quite easily, but they've now marked him, and now the 3 of them
have moved forward. They've distanced themselves from their former breakaway companions. So Jesse Coyle and Conor Murdoch now find themselves chasing 30 seconds their advantage with 18.5 kilometres to race to Shepparton.
Well, I wonder if Murdoch and Coyle...
Ben Hill checking on their whereabouts and now trying to make the decision. What's our best option? Wait or go?
Well, they'll keep going. I wonder if Murdoch and Coyle have stopped. If they've sat up and waiting for the peloton. If that camera's panned back, we might be able to see, but we'll just keep an eye on that. 31 seconds, so they've absolutely reduced that margin. Oh, there they are.
They're chasing.
Yeah, they haven't set up completely.
Well, it's still sitting at the back of the peloton. 3 of the riders at least from ARA. Number 97, that's Sebastian Barrett. Also at the back is number 92, Michael Freeberg. Here comes Conor Murdoch and Jesse Coyle. With that intermediate sprint, their advantage has gone out just a little bit further. It's back up to 37 seconds.
Gee, I'm surprised they got gapped so much, Murdoch and Coyle, and now they're sort of left chasing, and it's probably in vain because the peloton are going to be coming up behind them very soon indeed, I would think. You've almost got to make a call here. Save your matches. Save your bickies for another day.
You think so? You're fully committed. You've been out there all day.
But you're 100 metres behind, 3 riders going for it, and I mean, let's face it, they're going to be caught from the peloton, aren't they?
I would almost put my house on it that if you were in the shoes of Jesse Coyle or Conor Murdoch, you'd be chasing.
You're going to chase, yeah.
You wouldn't surrender. You wouldn't give up and go back to the peloton.
I think Coyle is now. Look at that.
Coyle is. He's cooked.
Yep.
That was not a psychological decision. That was a physical decision. The body is spent. Jesse Coyle was the last of the riders to make it across to the breakaway. He's now surrendered. Conor Murdoch is trying to rejoin them. And the group is back out to 52 seconds. So they've got a little bit more impetus as a result of going through the intermediate sprint at Tatura, where it was the battle for the Bright Brewery points classification. And there's not huge points at the sprint finishes, at the stage finishes. That intermediate sprint, that has netted Ben Hill 6 points. Stage victory is 10 points. So if Ben Hill keeps getting himself into the breakaways and picking up intermediate sprints throughout the race, he can potentially win the points classification. He won that classification at the recent Lexus of Blackburn Bay Crits by getting into the breakaways.
Oh, he's made a habit of it throughout his career, and that's what you do. You get off on the right foot, and not just him, you see it in these sort of tours riders. They make the first couple of days in the breakaways, they collect the maximum points, and then it becomes a bit of a chasing game for the other riders, and eventually they lose interest and they go out winning that jersey. He's got himself off to a good start.
So 4 remain out in front. Jesse Coyle, who was the last to join the original breakaway group, has now found himself distanced by his breakaway companions. I won't say he surrendered, because it wasn't a case of Jesse Coyle giving up. He was just cooked after a big day in the breakaway. Good ride today by Jesse. Yeah,
a very good ride indeed. And look, they've been racing for 2 hours and 16 minutes. It's not a long day in the saddle, but it is starting to become the warmest part of the day. So it's not a bad time for the peloton to roll into town here.
Down to the last 15.5 kilometres, the peloton starting to up the tempo. Their deficit on the breakaway is just 30 seconds.
The high country is now really renowned as the destination for cycling. Having grown up in the area, did you always have that threat of fire and were well aware of it?
This summer we've had horrific bushfires, and having people come back, and it'd be good to see the trails getting filled up and the roads getting filled up with cyclists again.
You and I have had fortune to ride all over the world, and this matches anything I've done.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, we're so spoilt with the vineyards, the mountain views, it's just magic.
So the ride that we've done today, that's a road ride that I know pretty well, but you're famous for being a world champion on the mountain bike. You've got to take me off-road.
Yes, we've got Mystic Mountain Bike Park here, and then 6 other amazing locations.
This is one of my favourite destinations. I'm coming back in Easter. Hopefully lots of other people come back as well and support the locals.
Cheers, mate.
The high country is the destination across the next 3 stages. It's Falls Creek tomorrow. The following day starts in Bright, finishes in Wangaratta. It's then Mansfield to Mount Buller before the last day on Sunday. The race finishes around the Botanic Gardens in Melbourne. This is stage 1 from Nagambie to Shepparton, the 67th edition of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour. Inside the last 15 kilometres as they're heading towards the outskirts of Maroopna, then on to Shepparton. It was a breakaway group of 5. At one point they had an advantage of 3 minutes and 30 seconds. It's now down to 28 seconds as we rejoin the front of the race. Conor Murdoch in green at the back of the group. Just in front of him is Charles Etienne Crichton. Then it is Ryan Thomas, and at the very front is Ben Hill. Matthew Keenan with you, joined by David Mckenzie, who's a multiple stage winner in this race, and he's finished on the podium inside the top 3 overall in the past. And we're heading back towards your hometown, David Mckenzie, of Shepparton, where you grew up. And Ben Hill is not happy with 2 of the riders in the breakaway.
Yeah, a little bit of frustration. Yeah, he's not, but look.
He's going to attack.
He's going to, well.
Is he? Oh, I thought he was.
Yeah, no, I think he's just a little bit of frustration. Look, I don't think he can be too frustrated. I mean, they've worked well all day together. He's jumped at the sprint and then gone ahead. That's tactics, Ben. I think you need to just try and keep them rolling along, but...
It's fatigue.
Yeah, it's fatigue.
Here's Ben Hill. He's having the conversation here with Charles Etienne and Conor, the 2 riders at the back, asking for them to do a little bit more. What are you doing just sitting on? Well, Conor's only just rejoined the breakaway.
Yeah.
Charles Etienne is the youngest guy in the group at 20 years of age. Ben Hill is now the man at the front driving the tempo, number 65. It's not a lack of desire from the other guys.
No.
It's simply fatigue.
And you have blurred vision when you're in a breakaway. You have blurred vision thinking that you can possibly stay away. And look, sometimes, as we've said, it does pay off. But the way we're watching the race here, we obviously have the beauty of seeing what the peloton is doing with the cameras going back and forth. So we can clearly say that the peloton are getting faster and faster and are going to bring them back. Whereas Ben Hill, as much as whatever his team is telling him, he's thinking there's an outside chance we might stay away. 13 kilometres to go, we're getting closer, we've got a chance, come on guys. So he's getting frustrated because Murdoch and the like aren't pulling full gas, but he just needs to just try and motivate them more than get angry at them, and they just might get on his side a little bit here, but really I think it's to no avail.
Well, he'll get the most aggressive award.
You'd think so.
Regardless of his performance with the pedals, he'll get it with the gesticulating.
Yeah, exactly.
This is Conor Murdoch in the green colours. Oliver's Real Food Racing, and he's about to bear the wrath again of Ben Hill as he calls Ben in. There's Ben, number 65 for Bridge Lane. New team for Ben this year, riding for Bridge Lane, and he's on the team with his brother Sam. And Sam was one of 3 riders from that team involved in the crash earlier this afternoon.
A couple of missing turns there. So Murdoch just feeling it a bit, calls Ryan Thomas in for ARA Pro Racing. So he's just skipping a couple.
Well, he was the one that missed the split after the immediate sprint, Conor Murdoch. And again, this is just the fuel tank is getting pretty close to empty. We're down to 12 kilometres to go. They've been racing for 110 Ks, and it has been pretty quick right from the moment the flag came in.
And I can see the finish line gantry with the clock ticking. 2 hours 22 minutes of racing, and you go, okay, in professional cycling terms, that's not a huge time in the saddle, but for a breakaway, 2 hours and 20 effectively at threshold, these guys will feel it
on the
tonight.
gas.
Yeah, they've been on the gas all day.
And for the riders in this breakaway, 121 kilometre stage, they do most of their racing around the 120 to the 160k mark. So this is still a reasonable length stage for them.
Yeah.
Whereas the top 4 teams in this race, who are in the top division of world cycling, they're more accustomed to 180 to 200 kilometre stages. So for them, this is relatively short. But for those guys in the breakaway, this is still a solid day.
Yeah.
19 seconds the lead for our 4 riders remaining out in front. And ARA still with 5 of their riders at the back of the group, one of them in the breakaway.
Well, all I can think is that the likes of Henk Vogels, of course, rider there just off the edge of the road. In fact, I think it might have been Michael Freeberg there. They know this running from Maroopton to Shepparton, and as I keep saying, it's big, wide open roads. So if they've done their homework, and most likely they have, they're not too concerned. They've said, just sit back, wait until the last 5-6 kilometres, then you can make your move up. Don't get to the front too hard, too soon. You have to box and fight for position. Let the other teams do that. Make you run late, make it a late charge. And look, even now, I mean, it's 2 lanes, but you know these country roads, Matt, as well as I do. They're 2 big lanes, aren't they? It's effectively a 3-lane sort of road that we're looking at the moment.
And now the peloton, they've got the breakaway well and truly within their sights. Just about to hit the last 10 kilometres. Conor Murdoch in green to the left-hand side of the screen. He takes a look across his shoulder and he'll see the peloton bearing down on them.
Yes, it's they've timed it well, haven't they, today? They weren't stressed at all. 4 World Tour teams. Took control early on. They let them go out to about 2 minutes and 40 seconds, 3 minutes in fact, and then that was it. They pegged them at 2:30 for most of the day.
It's been a good scenario for those 4 big teams because the breakaway being out there at that sort of distance has given them something to chase that also lets them control the rest of the field. This is Ryan Thomas now coming through to the front for ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast. The rider of that team will now be pinning its hopes on Michael Rice, who remains down the back of the peloton with Michael Freeberg, the Australian road champion from 2019, playing the key support role. 10 kilometres to the finish. The peloton about to make the left-hand turn.
Yeah, they're coming in onto Lamba Road now. They'll make the junction at Maroopna in a few more kilometres, and then it'll be a straight run effectively into the town of Shepparton with that right-hand turn with just 400 metres to go. So there's still a couple of turns, but they're sitting ducks now. Big wide open road. They can afford to just leave him sit there for a few more kilometres, in fact. Ben Hill, though, he's tenacious, isn't he?
Yep.
He will not sit up at all. You're going to have to come out to me. I'm not going back. Never surrender.
And now surely Michael Freeberg starts to move Michael Rice up towards the front. Let's take a look and see if there is any movement. Number 61, that's Nick White, perhaps trying to move forward. A couple of the riders from that team. Number 63, that's Sam Jenner. 64, that's Ben Metcalf. He was also involved in that fall. 22, Rob Powell, one of the favourites for the overall classification. 11 is Mitch Docker. 15 is Jonas Rusch. Still at the front, complete control by the 4 big teams. But number 122, and he's got there with his teammate, that's Chris Miller. That's the Nero Continental team. That's the team of Jesse Coyle, who we saw in the breakaway all day long. They are trying to protect Jay Vine. Jay Vine cannot win today, but he could go well tomorrow with the mountaintop finish at Falls Creek. Ben Hill attacking the attackers.
Yeah.
He's trying to go off the front of the breakaway.
Yeah, he wants the Quest most aggressive jersey. And now there might be a counter move here. If you wanted the jersey, that's what you do. But Ben Hill, is he going to mark him? Well, he should have kept going there. That was Charles Etienne Chrétien, was it? He should have kept going.
Yeah, they are playing for the Quest Shepparton most combative prize now. It's really difficult to split between them. I think Ben Hill will get the nod because of the amount of pacemaking that he's been doing. He now responds. This is Charles Etienne Chrétien, youngest rider from the breakaway. Conor Murdoch responding. Ryan Thomas is the first one to say, no, that's it for me. 8 kilometres to race, heading through Maroubna on the way to Shepparton.
Well,
Ben Hill.
He's gone straight by, hasn't he? And now Murdoch, just that camera flicking away there, Murdoch looks like he's thrown the white flag up as well. Murdoch is done, so to Chrétien.
It's Ben Hill on his own. This is what we expected. Surely he gets the Shepparton Quest most combative prize.
Yeah, you'd think so now, wouldn't he? And he will go until there's nothing left or until the peloton are on his rear wheel. I think in the next couple of kilometres they're going to bring him back. Probably he's not quite in Maroubna just yet, so he hasn't made that junction at Maroubna. It'll be sort of a right-hand turn, slight right-hand turn through the town of Maroubna very quickly, and then on towards Shepparton for the finish.
And you could almost guarantee that tomorrow at the start of the stage, number 65, Ben Hill, will go looking for the breakaway again.
Yeah, you'd think so. And he'll go searching for those intermediate sprints.
He'll definitely be chasing the intermediate sprint. And the first of the sprints tomorrow is after 47.1 kilometres, so that break will get a good chance to try and establish a bit of a lead. He picked up the sprint prize at the recent Lexus of Blackburn Bay Crits. He's the only one surviving from the original breakaway group of 5. The peloton is breathing down his neck. There's no need for the time check now. They can just about reach out and grab him, but he's not delivering table service to the peloton. You've got to go to the counter and collect. Still sitting at the back, ARA.
And they've got all their numbers there. 1, 2, 3, 6 riders sitting at the back. So they've obviously got a plan, and it's come from the back. This will be really interesting to see what they can do.
They're winning the most relaxed.
Yeah, they are. I'll give them that.
Number 96.
Here we go, one rider coming out.
Number 96 is the rider that they're sprinting for, Michael Rice. This looks like Angus Lyons, who is trying to come across in the green colours of Oliver's Real Food Racing. Hats off to this team. They've been in everything.
They have. They haven't missed a beat. Gee, this is going to... He's not going to achieve much out of this, though, I don't think.
He's going to achieve some sore legs.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of lactic acid build-up. Peloton, they're not even sort of deterred by that. They don't even pay attention to it. They just keep riding at their tempo, and they'll just slowly just keep lifting the tempo, lifting inside these last sort of 5-6 kilometres. Very hard to attack and ride away from a sort of angry peloton racing towards the finish.
No distractions.
No.
Stick to the plan.
And that's what you've got to do, because if you do get distracted and accelerate too much, you break up your chase train. So you just got to keep that tempo really even, really high, and keep pushing towards the line, and already you can see there.
And just as Angus Lyons has caught Ben Hill, he looks underneath the arm and he realises it's all over.
Yeah, another attack now.
Is
Is that
the
the Nero?
Quartermentha team?
Is it Quartermentha?
Nero.
No, you might be
Quartermentha.
right. Yeah.
It's the Quartermentha team now going on the attack. Nero Continental sliding up into second position. The red colours of Sunweb, they've got Alberto Danesi to work for. The Italian sprinter was good at Towards Zero Race Torquay. He finished in third position there.
He was very good, wasn't he? And let's remind everyone, a world-class sprinters field there. Sam Bennett taking out his second win there. Caleb Ewan, he didn't sprint on that day. He dropped out in the last lap, but nonetheless, Elia Viviani. So Danese, you would think he's a big chance for today.
And one of his key rivals will be Caden Groves of Mitchelton Scott, and those two were teammates last year at SEG Racing Academy. And now it's Danese's teammates of Sunweb who move themselves up to the front. Their sports director, Luke Roberts, he will know these roads reasonably well. He raced up in this region as a kid when he was a member of the Brunswick Cycling Club. And he did the Christmas Carnival on New Year's Day in Shepparton. He knows what to expect. He's had just one rider throughout the day contributing to the pacemaking. Now he's got the entire team at the front. Sunweb making an early statement, but have they gone too soon?
I was just about to say, Matt, it's a long way to go. And as you can see, look at it. They're going through the town now of Mooroopna. Very soon they'll be out the other side. It's a small town, pretty much straight road, and then it's like a causeway across to Shepparton. Very wide roads. It's very early to go. And look at the peloton swelling. They can all move up because they've got a lot of road to work with. So it is very, very early to try and go here. And a little bit of road furniture through town. A couple of riders just having to duck around the right side there, or the left side of the screen. But that's okay.
It's ARA who have come around the outside. Michael Freeberg, the big train.
Yeah.
Michael Freeberg has delivered. They've been waiting and waiting patiently. It's now time to step on the dance floor. Freeberg brings Rice to the front.
And now Mitchelton Scott as well, moving up. Of course, they'll be looking after Caden Groves. He's wearing number 4. He will be their designated sprinter. But look at this, see what I mean? It's 2 lanes and 2 lanes either side. It looks like they've got the whole use of this road across here. So plenty of time to move up.
And the black and yellow colours, the big figure on the right-hand side of the screen, Sam Bewley from Mitchelton Scott, waiting.
Yeah, it's smart. It's smart.
Waiting to deliver Caden Groves. ARA with Michael Freeberg won't be intimidated by the World Tour teams. He knows he can mix it with them. The pink colours of EF, Education First. It's Jonas Rush, the big figure that's coming towards the front. Meanwhile, at the back, it is a simple case of survival. 1-2-1, Jesse Coyle, big day out. Well done, Jesse. He spent the whole stage in the breakaway.
Yeah, it's easy enough to sit on the back now. You can follow, but trying to move up, trying to go to the front, you've really got to be at your maximum effort. Even though they've got the whole road, it's a real washing machine effect. And look, no one's got complete control here. Look at that. They are using 4 lanes at the moment here. 4 lanes. One team has now dived down the left. Mitchelton casually with Bewley just cruises up alongside them, just following that line. And again, just keeping himself in the slipstream where he can, because the longer he can stay there and deliver the rest of his teammates at the front towards the finish, well then his job is done to perfection.
Well, in the middle of the picture, this is St George Continental mixing it with the world's biggest teams. They've already shown that Craig Wiggins is sprinting well. He was 3rd at the first of the intermediate sprints. 2 kilometres to race to Shepparton. It's Sam Bewley now going to the front on the right-hand side of the screen for Mitchelton Scott. And the pink colours of EF off to the left-hand side of the screen, they've followed the wheels of St George Continental. There was the 2 kilometre marker. There's one corner to come, and it's within a few hundred metres of the finish line. It will be a big dive for positions through that right-hander.
It will, because they'll come into town and the 4 lanes will reduce to 2, and it wouldn't surprise me if there is a little bit of road furniture as well. So they'll go from having all of this space down to nothing, and it'll be halved and less if you like. So positioning right about now is super important. This is where You don't want to be doing your final lead-out train. Only 1.3 kilometres to go, but you want to be right there.
Michael Freeberg at the front. He has Michael Rice behind him. But for how much longer can Freeberg do this? He flicks the elbows. He gets out of the way. He says, Ricey, you take over. And Michael Rice is trying to force his way onto the wheel of Caden Groves, but that's a popular spot to be.
Yes, and you can see now Mitchelton now are starting to use their numbers. Cameron Meyer, the Australian road champion, but they're drifting back a little bit here. Less than a kilometre to go, Matt. I tell you what, they're leaving it late.
And that was Jonas Rush getting out of the way in the pink colours. Sunweb now to the front. This is for Alberto Danesi. They're looking to set up the Italian sprinter. Meyer sweeping and swinging. He gets out of the way for Mitchelton, Scott.
Well, they're less than 600-700 metres to go. This is the road furniture. The road now is halved into 2 lanes. Mitchelton, where is Caden Groves? He's going to have to move very quickly indeed.
They're about to make the right-hand turn, and once they do, they'll see the finish line. There it is. The finish line awaits. The back of the peloton, they're out of contention. They're tuning into race radio. The sprint is on. Danesi, Hoffland, Groves. It's Danesi who celebrates. He raises his arms. The Italian sprinter is convinced. He's quickly on the race radio to tell his teammates, we've won stage 1 and we've taken the yellow jersey. Alberto Danesi collecting the stage honours. It was desperately tight on the finish line. Caden Groves looked to be in second position. We'll wait on confirmation. Marino Hoffman certainly nearby, potentially in third place. The red colours of Alberto Danesi bursting through the centre. He gets the nod. And he knows it's Caden Groves, his former teammate, also acknowledges that it's the Italian who takes out the opening stage.
A little bit rolling, and some sprinters are obviously, they're very protected, so they're able to stay out of the wind and save everything.
Well, the Sunweb team, they went to the front very early with 4.5 kilometres to go. They got swamped somewhat, but Alberto Danesi, he didn't have too many problems contending with the rest of that bunch sprint finish. He kept himself out of trouble, and he has managed to pick up the opening stage of the 67th edition of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour. That will also give him the leader's jersey in the overall classification, so he'll be wearing yellow tomorrow. He's taken the lead in the Bright Brewery points classification. What we can also confirm is that the race director, Scott McGrory, has awarded the most combative prize to Ben Hill of the Bridge Lane team, and rightly so.
I believe it was Marina Hoffland, so we've got to get confirmation on that as well, because we did have a bit of a Tom Scully look at that.
So opening stage taken out by Alberto Danesi. Stick with us. We'll be hearing from the stage winner shortly.
The high country is now really renowned as the destination for cycling.
Having grown up in the area, did you always have that threat of fire and were well aware of it?
This summer we've had horrific bushfires, and having people come back, and it'd be good to see the trails getting filled up and the roads getting filled up with cyclists again.
You and I have had fortune to ride all over the world, and this matches anything I've done.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, we were so spoilt with the vineyards, the mountain views, it's just magic.
So the ride that we've done today, that's a road ride that I know pretty well, but you're famous for being a world champion on the mountain bike. You've got to take me off-road.
Yes, we've got Mystic Mountain Bike Park here, and then 6 other amazing locations.
This is one of my favourite destinations. I'm coming back in Easter. Hopefully lots of other people come back as well and support the locals.
Cheers, mate.
Stage 1 of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour, and it's the Italian Alberto Danesi who has taken out the opening stage from Nagambie through to Shepparton. 121 kilometres of racing. Breakaway group of 5 at one point had an advantage of 3.5 minutes, but in the end the sprinters had their day. It was Alberto Danesi who took the victory ahead of Caden Groves, and then Marino Hoffland in third position. Mikael Ram was in 4th place. It was then Godfrey Slattery in 5th position. Let's take a look at some of the highlights from the stage.
But obviously, as you said, they got you there into
Starting
that last
at the
corner
Mitchelton
in the right
Winery, it started under ideal conditions. The temperatures early on in the low 20s, they climbed to the high 20s by the end of the stage. Neutral start for the first 3 kilometres, and that was delayed ever so slightly because Michael Storer from the Sunweb team had a front wheel puncher, and the race rules state that we wait for the entire peloton to be together before the flag drops and the stage gets underway. Number 22, Rob Powell, one of the teammates of Michael Storer, had a fairly relaxing day. He spent most of it at the back. As for the riders from the Quarter Mentha Australian national team, not so relaxing for them. They were in the thick of the action right from the very start. The first of the intermediate sprints, it was Roy Efting collecting the points. It was then Nick White in 2nd position, followed by Craig Wiggins. Roy Efting, the Dutch sprinter for the Sapura cycling team. He's got one of the outside contenders for overall honours with Marcus Cooley. Not too long after that intermediate sprint, we saw the breakaway of the day form. 5 riders, including Ben Hill from Bridge Lane, Ryan Thomas from ARA, Conor Murdoch of Oliver's Real Food Racing, Charles Etienne Crichton of Evolo, and Jesse Coyle was the last to join the group from Nero Continental. Unfortunately for number 61 from Bridge Lane, Nick White, who finished 2nd in the opening intermediate sprint, he was also involved in the one major fall of the day. He, along with 2 other of his teammates from Bridge Lane. Nick White went down along with Ben Metcalf and also Sam Hill, the brother of Ben Hill. All of them rejoined the race, but Nick White looks to be the most seriously injured. We cross our fingers and we hope that he's okay. Simon Yates wearing number 1, the winner of the 2018 Vuelta a España. He had an uneventful day. He spent most of it safely ensconced within the peloton. Into Tatura for the 2nd of the intermediate sprints with 19.5 kilometres remaining. It was Ben Hill who picked up the maximum points to put himself in contention for the Bright Brewery points classification. After the sprint, Hill then went on the attack to try and break away from the breakaway. He was rejoined by Conor Murdoch, and he wasn't overly happy with Conor's non-contribution at that point to the rest of the breakaway group. Good news for Ben Hill is, though, that he has been awarded the Quest Shepparton Most Combative Prize for the stage. As the breakaway got inside the last 10 kilometres, they were still holding on to a slender lead. They started to attack each other. It was Ben Hill who was the last to be caught by the peloton. It was the 4 World Tour teams at the front of the main field who were controlling the break all day long, and it was no different as they approached Marupna and then on to Shepparton. In the sprint finish, it was Alberto Danesi who managed to pick up the victory. It was a narrow margin, but it was enough. He took the win ahead of Caden Groves, Marino Hofland in 3rd position, Mikael Ram in 4th place, with Godfrey Slattery rounding out the top 5. Michael Rice was in 6th position. It was then Roy Efting in 7th position. Nakajima in 8th place, followed by Scully in 9th, and then Tom Bolton in 10th place. 2 hours and 36 minutes. The race was quite a way ahead of schedule. Let's now get down to David Mckenzie with the stage winner, Alberto Danesi.
Alberto, congratulations. It was a tight finish in the end, but you were obviously confident.
Yeah, the guys did a perfect job today, and we controlled the breakaway all day long, and Storer did a good job, and also all the rest, the last 5K we did the perfect lead out, you know. Then with Max, I entered the corner like 5th, 6th, and yeah, then it was a bit messy, but in the end I got it.
Were you concerned at all? I thought the team had almost gone to the front a little bit too soon because it was a big wide road, but obviously, as you said, they got you there into that last corner in the right position.
Yeah, we were a little bit too early, but yeah, in the end it was good. And then Max did a good job till the last corner. And then I waited a little bit because it was Edwin. And then yeah, in the end I also touched a little bit the education first guy, I think, Hofland. Yeah. And yeah, and then I went all perfect.
It's Australia's been good to you. It's a good month out here for you now, and now you got a win on the board.
Yeah, again a lot of experience with the big guys, you know. First year in the World Tour, and in Down Under I could yeah, learn a little bit in the sprints with the big guys. And yeah, today was a good opportunity to win.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
He's learned a lot and he's learned quickly, and this was a pressure occasion for Alberto Danese. Going from racing the Tour Down Under, he was competitive there, likewise with a third place finish at race Torquay towards zero. The win here was one where he was a guy that had a target on his back. So as one of the youngsters in the peloton, it really was an impressive performance by Alberto Danese to take the stage victory. In the race for the Bright Brewery points classification, the opening intermediate sprint, that was taken out by Roy Efting of the Sapura team. The second of the intermediate sprints, it was the Breakaway who was still off the front. And on that occasion, it was Ben Hill who managed to collect the maximum points. But it was after that first sprint that we saw this Breakaway group form. Ryan Thomas was the first to break ranks at 200 metres to go as they headed through to Tura. That was then Ben Hill who came over the top, collecting 6 points in the race for the Bright Brewery points classification. After that, Ben Hill tried to go on with it, hoping that the break would survive. In the battle for stage honours, Marino Hoffland in pink, Caden Groves in the black and yellow, Danese in the red colours for Sunweb. It was tight, but when a sprinter gets there, they know the result. They didn't have to wait for the photo. Alberto Danese celebrating quickly as soon as he went across the finish line. Lexus of Blackburn providing the team vehicles as well throughout this race. Danese leads the points classification. He's on 10 points, so he's the leader of that competition. But he won't get to wear the green jersey tomorrow. He'll be wearing the yellow jersey as the overall race leader. It was Caden Groves in second spot. Marino Hoffland from EF Education first in third position. Mikael Ram of Israel Startup Nation in fourth place. And then a good performance by Godfrey Slattery, one of the youngsters in the race, from the Corda Mentha team in fifth position. But Alberto Danese, incidentally, he's also one of the youngest riders in the race, and he's eligible for the Best Young Rider classification. So he takes the lead in every classification today. He's the stage winner. He leads the race overall. Has a 4-second advantage over Caden Groves because of the time bonus at the finish line. 10 seconds for the stage win. Caden Groves got a 6-second time bonus, so he's in second position at 4 seconds behind. Then Marino Hoffland in third place at 6 seconds. Roy Efting and Ben Hill are both at 7 seconds behind because they won the intermediate sprint, so they got a 3-second time bonus. It's then Wiggins and Creighton at 9 seconds behind, followed by Mikael Ram, Godfrey Slattery and Michael Rice making up the top 10. That is sure to change tomorrow because stage 2 will take the peloton to the top of Falls Creek. We look to see whether Alberto Danese can hold on to yellow.
It's exciting to be coming back to the Herald Sun Tour this year. I believe it's the first race that I've come to as defending champion, and being able to pin number 1 on my jersey is pretty cool. We've been here at Mitchelton Wines for the last couple of days since the Cadell Evans race. Absolutely enjoying it. It's the first time I've had the pleasure of staying here. So we've been enjoying these beautiful surroundings and eating some lovely local food and just generally relaxing. The accommodation here at Mitchelton Wines has been outstanding. For a race hotel, just a step above everything. Beautiful, comfortable rooms and nice pool and just lovely grounds around it. Every other race hotel's got a lot to live up to. We rode through Nagambie this morning. It was the first time I'd actually ridden through Nagambie. It's a really lovely little town actually there on the lake. We sat and had a coffee by the lake. But between training and racing, I like to eat a lot. I'm a bit of a foodie, so I enjoy eating good food and drinking coffee, spending time with friends, and just generally trying to not think about cycling too much actually, get away from it a little bit.
The getting away from it is just about over for Lucy Kennedy as she's in Shepparton. She's about to start the first stage of the Lexus of Blackburn Herald Sun Tour. Shepparton, a wonderful place to come and visit, a popular destination for holiday makers throughout Australia. The Motor Museum, David Mckenzie has spoken about this earlier on as a guy who grew up in Shepparton. It's also got one of the best public pools you're ever likely to see. The Lawn Tennis Club, which hosts a lot of the Country Weekend big tennis tournament that brings lots of families together. They have 23 grass courts, and that's right near the finish line. I'm now joined by Rochelle Gilmore as we anticipate the start of the women's race. Before we get to that, Rochelle, in today's race for the men, I was expecting the wind to play a bit more of a role, but it was too good a day.
Yeah, I think it was perfect for the sprinters. They were very well protected by their lead riders and domestiques, so exactly what we expected coming into the finish, a big bunch sprint, but I think those breakaway riders did give it a really good go, especially towards the end there. We saw Ben Hill jump out and attack them and try to bring it home by himself, but pretty good effort.
I was really impressed with Alberto Danesi, the young Italian. It's his first year in the World Tour. It's his first professional contract, and he spoke about learning a lot at the Tour Down Under, but he comes to this race, and he's one of the guys with a target on his back, so he's delivered under the pressure of expectation.
Yeah, and I think he did that very well. I mean, there was a lot of pressure coming into the finish there. There was riders all the way across. The lead-outs were a little bit messy coming into the finish. So he's the rider that wanted it more in the end, didn't he? He really did want that win, and it was a tight battle to the finish line, a little bit of touch of elbows. And so, yeah, I think he's really come into his own, and he's going to be very pleased when he goes to bed today with a UCI win under his belt this early in the season.
And he'll have the yellow jersey on his back heading into tomorrow's stage up to the top of Falls Creek. For the women, we saw a lot of the women actually go to the finish line and watch the sprint finish just a couple of moments ago. What will they take out of seeing how the men's stage was ridden?
Yeah, I think it's a really good move for the women, and it's a really good format here at the Herald Sun Tour in that respect. The women also feel like they're a little bit of the main event being after the men. That doesn't happen very often. So coming down here and watching the finish, I think is really valuable because they can see, and they can also talk to the riders that have just sprinted as well and see if they hit out too early, and because, you know, only one rider really gets it right, doesn't he? And yeah, today that was Danesi, so they'll know that where he kicked, where he came off the wheel. They'll probably study the footage as well. So I think it's a valuable exercise to have a race before you that you can actually watch.
The women's stage starts and finishes in Shepparton. It's 94 kilometres, and it's around about an hour and 15 before that gets underway. The presentations for the men's race, they're just about to get started as well. It's going to be a busy day for Alberto Danesi. He's going to take the bouquet for the stage win. He takes the leader's jersey for the overall classification. He'll get the green jersey for the points classification. And he's the best young rider.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's just got to enjoy the moment, doesn't he, today? Because tomorrow's a completely different day as well, finishing at the top of Falls Creek. So, yeah, and he's got to kind of try to keep his excitement a little bit at bay. There's a lot more to come here at the Herald Sun Tour this year. It's a very hard tour, obviously 2 hilltop finishes. So, yeah, he's got to enjoy the moment but not expend too much energy.
I'm convinced we'll see him tomorrow in the yellow jersey as the race leader, playing the role of a domestique as a team support rider. He's got 2 guys on his team, Rob Power and Jai Hindley, who are contenders to win this race overall. The Sunweb team's off to a really good start. They've got a smart sports director, Luke Roberts, calling the shots. That helps.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's such a cool character, isn't he? He's able to apply pressure in the way that's just very professional and warming as well, you know, and it motivates you. So there's a lot of different types of management styles, but Luke Roberts, I think, is probably one of the best sports directors in the world just because of his personality.
That pressure that you referred to, it's a positive pressure and a positive reinforcement as opposed to a negative pressure, an old school brutality approach. It's a positive, I believe in you pressure that he puts on his riders.
And it's very hard to achieve that from a sports director's point of view. It's very hard to have that balance where you don't instill fear and you don't, you know, you motivate them in a positive way. So I think Luke Roberts is a special character for that role, and perhaps, you know, at the end of the day, some riders believe that they can win more races with a certain director, and maybe there's some truth in that. So you've got to feel comfortable and motivated, and you've got to want to all do it together.
Let's get down to the presentations to see Alberto Danesi come out and be greedy and take all of the prizes. The only prize he's going to miss out on is the most competitive prize, and that's going to go to Ben Hill. Here he is, the 21-year-old Italian for the Sunweb team. He's had a really good start to his professional career. It's important, particularly for a sprinter, to win early, to get some money in the goodwill bank with the rest of the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all pressure off after you get that first big win, so this will make him hungrier when he gets back to Europe too, and just give it a perfect race to come and do it, you know, here in Australia early season and get that win under your belt.
And then the most aggressive jersey is about to be presented, and this is going to go to one of the riders from the Breakaway. No surprises, Ben Hill gets the award.
Absolutely, no surprise when I heard that decision from the race director, Scott McGorry. Yeah, he played a big part in that breakaway, and he was aggressive there towards the finish. You know, there was no point sitting up at that point of the race, was there? So yeah, great move by Ben Hill, go on the attack, and proud wearer of that jersey. He won't wear that in the start tomorrow, but he'll be able to wear it to bed tonight if he wishes to.
Well, good day for Ben Hill and a good consolation prize for the team because they had 3 riders on that team crash today. Nick White, Ben Metcalf and his brother Sam Hill crashed. So this will be a good morale booster to the team to have Ben take the Quest Shepparton red jersey back to the hotel.
Happy birthday, Ben Hill.
And a stage finish right out front of the Quest Shepparton. I hope he's staying there. Perhaps he gets a free drink as a result. He's a guy that always gets into the breakaway. For that team, given that they had so many riders crash, how hard will that be? You've been in that position as a team manager, as a sports director. How hard is that to try and get everybody to pull back together and put that behind them?
Yeah, it does change the environment in the team to have a few riders injured and not on the start line the following day, or knowing that they are on the start line but they're not going to be much help. So it does change the morale in the team, but in some ways it can also give you some more positivity in the way that you don't feel that pressure, that there's no expectations now. Unfortunately, we've got a few riders injured. Let's just do the best we can, and the weight's lifted off your shoulders, and we can see some aggressive racing from the riders that are still left there.
This is the white jersey, the Victorian Government white jersey for the Best Young Rider classification. This is for riders born after the 1st of January 1997. And Alberto Danesi's actually got a few years still remaining in this classification. Visit Victoria, the partners of this race, the sponsors of the white jersey classification. He won't get to wear that tomorrow because he'll be wearing the yellow jersey as the overall race leader. Therefore, it will be Godfrey Slattery who will be in the white jersey. He'll have that on loan. And Godfrey Slattery for the Court of Mentha real estate team. Good result for him to finish in 5th position on today's stage.
Yeah, fantastic result. This is like the, biggest race we have outside of the World Tour here. So for these riders to get opportunities and see where they can rank themselves, I mean, there's a lot of good riders that he beat today, take a lot of confidence from that. So a fantastic result.
And now the green jersey for the Bright Brewery points classification. It's that man again, Alberto Danesi. I hope he's got an excess luggage allowance.
An extra suitcase there. No doubt there'll be some staff that he'd love to present one of the jerseys to after he's finished with them. Bright Brewery, they're set up in the park here in Shepparton. If you're feeling like a drink, now's a great time to go and watch the rest of the presentations and grab yourself a drink from the Bright Brewery tent.
And get ready to watch the women's race, which starts in 1 hour and 10 minutes.
Absolutely, they're all around the women, just checking out the finish, riding in across the line, and it's a sport where you can interact and go up, and the riders are pretty relaxed too, so you can go and ask for their autograph and have a chat to them, check out their equipment, their bikes, talk to their team mechanics. So it's all happening down here at the start-finish of the women's race.
And the women's race today is the day where the non-pure climbers have to take a risk and try and put the climbers under real pressure. They would have been hoping for a bit more wind. I'm searching around looking for some flags, but it's too nice a day in Shepparton for a bike race for the non-climbers. One more jersey to come, and again it's for Alberto Danesi, and it's the one that counts. It's the yellow jersey as the overall race leader in the Jayco Herald Sun Tour. I think he'll have it for one day only. Big climb to come tomorrow for the sprinter.
Yeah, he's got to enjoy this moment in that yellow jersey, and these are memories that stay with you forever. It's not often that sprinters get to wear a yellow jersey. There are very limited opportunities for it, so that's one he's going to cherish. You can see that. You can see that he feels this is a fantastic achievement, not just to win the stage, but to take a yellow jersey in a UCI Tour. A fantastic accomplishment.
Some sparkling from Mitchelton Winery just down the road where he started the stage today. Caught him a little bit by surprise. But even as one of the youngsters in the peloton, he's already got quite a bit of experience doing this. And he's enjoying the moment.
Yeah.
You got straight in your own eyes. You've got a bit of practice maybe in the next couple of days. Congratulations. You're a neo-professional. I was just chatting to you backstage. It's been a good summer for you here in Australia.
We're just eavesdropping on David Mckenzie having this conversation with Alberto Danesi. And Alberto certainly has enjoyed his stint here in Australia. It's been a very good month for him. It's been a huge month for him, the first month, and then he goes back to Europe. He'll go back with a lot of confidence, which is so important in your first season.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only just having the racing out here under his belt as well and in his legs, he's had the training and just the beautiful environment and weather and things like that. So he definitely go back to Europe with a lot of confidence.
A sprinter has won the opening stage of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour. It's the Lexus of Blackburn Herald Sun Tour to start at 2:15. Join us then for more coverage from Shepparton. We see who takes the leader's jersey in the women's race later this afternoon.